8 clear signs you're secretly crushing on each other. Psychology tricks. Where there is great love, there are always miracles. Willa Cather. Have you ever shared a look with someone and felt a quiet spark pass between you, something too real to dismiss and too subtle to explain? Sometimes the heart notices the truth before the mind is ready to admit it. In a world crowded with mixed messages, surface level attention, and connections that fade as quickly as they appear, discovering that the feeling may be mutual can feel rare and deeply refreshing. This is not only about attraction or passing excitement. It is about emotional energy, silent understanding, and that unmistakable tension that seems to live in the space between two people. The kind of connection that does not need constant words to make itself known. The kind that leaves you wondering whether what you feel is being felt on the other side, too. In this journey, we are going to explore 8 clear signs that suggest this bond may not exist only in your imagination. Sometimes two people begin falling for each other in ways that are gentle, hidden, and almost invisible to everyone else, yet powerful enough to change everything. 1. Magnetic eye contact. The eyes shout what the lips fear to say. That quiet truth explains why magnetic eye contact is often the first and most powerful signal that two people may already be stepping into the mysterious dance of attraction. When you and someone else lock eyes and the moment stretches just a little longer than normal, something subtle is happening beneath the surface. You don't just glance and move on. You linger. You look away, and then somehow find your eyes meeting again as if pulled by an invisible thread. That is not random. That is not ordinary politeness. Be attentive to that moment. Psychology has studied this for decades and calls it mutual gaze, a quiet but powerful signal that emotional curiosity exists on both sides. In simple terms, when two people hold eye contact longer than usual, their brains release small amounts of dopamine and oxytocin, chemicals connected to trust, comfort, and attraction. That is why the moment can feel warm, almost familiar, even if you barely know each other. It feels safe. It feels inviting. It feels strangely like coming home to a place you have never been before. Do not ignore this signal. Many men brush it off. They assume it means nothing. They tell themselves, she's probably just being polite. Don't rush to dismiss what your instincts notice. One of the most overlooked psychology tricks in human connection is simply recognizing when someone's attention lingers on you longer than social habit requires. A quick glance is normal. A returning gaze is meaningful. And a repeated moment of eye contact that carries softness, curiosity, or a quiet smile often reveals a deeper layer of female psychology at work. Women, in many cases, communicate attraction more subtly than men expect. Instead of obvious declarations, their interest appears through microsignals, eye contact that lasts half a second longer, a smile that appears when your eyes meet again, or the way her gaze briefly drops before returning to yours. The observant. That is how emotional awareness grows. When this kind of eye contact happens repeatedly, something deeper is forming beneath the conversation. It becomes a silent dialogue. Words may remain casual, even ordinary, but the eyes begin saying more than the conversation itself. That is the moment where curiosity begins turning into connection. This is also where understanding how to fall in love begins, not through grand gestures, but through tiny moments of attention that quietly build emotional familiarity. Look closely and you will notice another detail. When two people are secretly attracted, their eye contact rarely feels awkward. Instead, it carries a calm stillness. You don't feel rushed to look away. There is a sense of ease in the silence between glances. That comfort matters. Real attraction is rarely loud in the beginning. It grows quietly through repeated signals that both people instinctively recognize. Be calm. Don't overanalyze. Simply notice the pattern. If her eyes frequently return to you in a room full of people, that is meaningful. If her gaze softens when you speak, that is meaningful. If she holds eye contact while smiling instead of quickly looking away, that is meaningful. These are not accidents. They are small emotional invitations. Many of the most effective psychology tricks in attraction are not about manipulation at all. They're about awareness, recognizing the signals that naturally appear when interest is mutual. Eye contact is one of the clearest of those signals because it bypasses language and speaks directly through emotion. That is why people often remember the moment they first locked eyes with someone who later became important in their life. The brain records that moment because it recognizes emotional relevance. From a deeper perspective of female psychology, eye contact also serves as a subtle evaluation tool. She watches your reaction. Are you confident or uncomfortable? Do you smile naturally or immediately look down? Do you hold the gaze calmly or break it with nervousness? These responses communicate more than words ever could. That is why presence matters. Don't stare aggressively. Don't avoid the moment either. Be relaxed. Meet her gaze naturally. Offer a calm smile. That is enough. Authentic connection grows in that quiet balance. Understanding how to fall in love often begins with mastering these small, human moments rather than chasing dramatic displays of romance. Attraction rarely explodes out of nowhere. It unfolds gradually through repeated signals of comfort and curiosity. Eye contact is often the first doorway into that process. It allows two people to recognize each other before either one is ready to speak openly about their feelings. When that magnetic glance begins happening again and again, pay attention. Something meaningful may be quietly developing between you. Not every glance leads to love, of course. But when the gaze lingers, returns, and carries warmth rather than indifference, it often reveals that both hearts are beginning to lean in the same direction. And in the quiet world of attraction, that is where every real connection begins. 2. Subconscious mirroring. You mirror each other without realizing it. Notice how you both laugh at the same time, cross your legs the same way, or pick up each other's phrases. That's emotional mirroring. It happens when people subconsciously sync because they're emotionally attuned. It's like your nervous systems are dancing together before your minds even catch up. At first, it looks like nothing. Just small moments. A shared laugh. A similar gesture. The same posture at the same time. But pay attention. These little details are rarely random. Human psychology is incredibly sensitive to connection. When two people feel drawn to each other, their bodies often reveal it long before their words do. You lean back in your chair. A moment later, she leans back too. You touch your chin while thinking. Soon she mirrors the same movement without noticing. That is emotional synchronization at work. It is subtle, quiet, almost invisible to the outside world. But inside that silent exchange, something powerful is happening. Don't ignore these signals. Be aware of them. When two people subconsciously mirror each other, it means they feel comfortable. Their minds are aligned. Their emotional rhythms begin to match. That is why psychologists often say that mirroring is one of the strongest indicators of hidden attraction. The body speaks honestly when the mind is still trying to stay careful. Think of it this way. Two tuning forks placed near each other will eventually vibrate at the same frequency. Humans do something very similar in social interactions. When attraction exists, energy aligns. Movements synchronize. Speech patterns slowly begin to match. That is not manipulation. That is connection. A high-value man understands this dynamic without forcing it. He does not mimic someone deliberately to create attraction. Don't do that. Forced imitation feels artificial and awkward. Instead, be relaxed. Be present. Be comfortable in your own skin. When your masculine energy is calm and grounded, emotional mirroring often appears naturally. That is the key. Authentic presence. Many men miss this sign because they are too busy overthinking every conversation. They search for big, dramatic signals. But real attraction often lives in small details. Shared body language. Matching smiles. The rhythm of conversation flowing without effort. You must learn to notice these quiet cues. If she mirrors your gestures, your tone, or even the pace of your speech, something deeper may be forming beneath the surface. It suggests emotional comfort. It suggests attention. And very often, it suggests attraction. And here is the beautiful part. When you carry yourself with steady confidence, when your masculine energy feels calm and centered, this natural synchronization becomes even stronger. People relax around you. They open up. They unconsciously align with your emotional state. That is one of the subtle ways a high value man begins to attract women without chasing or forcing attention. So watch carefully, not with suspicion, with awareness. Notice the shared laughter. Notice the mirrored posture. Notice when your conversation begins to feel like a quiet dance where both people instinctively know the next step. That is emotional attunement. That is subconscious mirroring. And sometimes it is the first silent signal that two people are secretly starting to like each other. If you've ever noticed this quiet rhythm between you and someone else, laughing at the same moment, matching each other's energy without even trying, don't ignore it. That kind of subconscious mirroring is rarely random. It's what happens when two people are emotionally in tune long before either of them says a word about it. So if this message resonates with you, take a second and join the conversation. Drop a comment right now and write, when the energy matches, the connection is real. And remember, awareness is power. Like this video, subscribe for more insights that sharpen your understanding of attraction, connection, and human psychology. 3. Energy shifts in the room. There is a quiet moment many men recognize but rarely name, the subtle shift in the air when a certain person walks into the room. Nothing dramatic, no fireworks, just a small internal change that tells you something meaningful is happening beneath the surface. Suddenly you notice your breathing. Your posture straightens. Your voice becomes calmer, more intentional. Or perhaps your confidence rises half an inch without you trying. That shift matters. That is not imagination. It is emotional awareness coming online. And when you begin to understand it, you begin to understand attraction at a deeper level. The ancient philosophers spoke about this kind of awareness long before modern psychology tried to explain it. As the Roman emperor and Stoic thinker Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." When someone enters a room and your internal world shifts, your task is not to panic or chase the feeling. Your task is to observe it, calmly, clearly, like a man with an iron mind. Because here is the truth. Attraction often announces itself through energy long before words appear. You feel it in the room, in the silence between sentences, in the way attention becomes sharper when that person is nearby. And if you are paying attention, you will notice something even more interesting. They feel it too. Watch carefully. When they see you, their posture changes slightly. Their eyes brighten. Their tone becomes warmer. It is subtle, but it is real. The atmosphere changes because two nervous systems are responding to each other at the same time. Modern psychology calls this emotional resonance, but the principle is deeply aligned with old Stoic wisdom. The Stoics trained themselves to observe human nature without illusions. They understood that emotions rise naturally, but discipline determines what you do next. That is why a man who practices Stoicism win principles does not become confused when he feels that energetic shift. He becomes curious. He studies it. He stays composed. Do not rush. Do not overanalyze. Just observe. Because attraction that grows quietly often carries more depth than attraction that shouts for attention. In today's modern world, crowded offices, coffee shops, networking events, gyms, airports, these subtle shifts happen every day. Two people enter the same space. They exchange a glance. The air changes slightly. One becomes more aware. The other becomes more attentive. And suddenly the environment feels different. This is not coincidence. Humans are wired for connection. When two people are emotionally tuned to each other, the room itself begins to feel smaller. Conversations become easier. Silence becomes comfortable. Energy becomes focused. A man with an iron mind does not ignore this signal, but he also does not lose control because of it. Remember the wisdom of Epictetus. First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. If you wish to be calm, grounded, and respected, then act that way when the energy shifts. Do not become restless. Do not become overly eager. Be steady. Be centered. Let your presence speak. Because when attraction is mutual, tension does not need to be forced. It grows naturally, slowly, quietly. And this is where old Stoic wisdom becomes powerful guidance for modern men. You must understand your internal reactions without becoming ruled by them. Notice the breath changing. Notice the voice softening. Notice the slight lift in confidence. Good. Awareness is strength, but mastery comes from composure. This is how Stoicism win principles transform ordinary interactions into moments of quiet leadership. Instead of chasing attention, you create calm gravity. Instead of reacting nervously, you hold your frame. Instead of guessing wildly, you observe patterns. Does the conversation become smoother when you speak? Do they linger a little longer before leaving? Do they seem more engaged when you are nearby? These are not random details. These are emotional signals. Attraction rarely begins with dramatic declarations. It begins with energy, with awareness, with presence. And men who develop an iron mind recognize this earlier than most. They do not rush the story. They let the story unfold. Consider the insight of Seneca, who said, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity." In the world of human connection, preparation means emotional discipline. Opportunity appears when that energetic shift happens in the room. The moment someone enters and your attention sharpens. The moment they notice you and something changes in their expression. That is the opening. Not to chase, not to impress, but to be present. Calm presence is magnetic. A relaxed smile, clear eye contact, steady conversation. These simple behaviors communicate confidence far louder than rehearsed lines ever could. In modern life, many men overcomplicate attraction. They search for tricks, scripts, perfect timing. But the truth is far simpler and far older. Energy reveals interest before words ever do. When someone's presence changes the way you feel in a room, and your presence changes the way they feel, something meaningful may be developing. The wise man acknowledges this without becoming controlled by it. That is the discipline taught by old Stoic wisdom. Notice the shift. Respect the moment. Maintain composure. This is Stoicism win in action. Calm awareness. Quiet strength. Emotional intelligence guided by an iron mind. Because the man who can remain steady while the emotional atmosphere changes around him becomes naturally compelling. People feel safe around that kind of stability. They trust it. They lean toward it. And often, without either of you saying it out loud, the room begins to feel like a shared space, a small world where attention flows easily between two people. That is when you know something genuine may be forming. Not loud, not forced, just present. And the man who understands this does not chase energy. He becomes the calm center of it. 4. Finding reasons to be near each other. Finding reasons to be near each other is one of the quietest yet most powerful signals that two people are secretly drawn together. And if you pay attention, you will notice how naturally this pattern appears in everyday life. A man might tell himself it is coincidence, but when the same person repeatedly shows up near you, offers help, or casually creates opportunities to interact, something deeper is unfolding beneath the surface. This is where subtle psychology tricks reveal the truth of attraction. People who feel a mutual pull rarely say it directly at first. Instead, they move closer in small, natural ways. She volunteers to help you carry something even when others are around. You take the longer route through the office, the cafe, or the hallway just to pass by her. That is not random. That is human nature quietly revealing interest. The observant. Notice the patterns, not just the moments. When two people are developing feelings, proximity becomes comfortable and even exciting. Being near each other feels rewarding in itself. A simple conversation becomes the highlight of the day. A short walk together feels longer than it really is because both people secretly wish it would not end. In female psychology, this kind of behavior often appears through small acts of availability. She may linger a little longer after a conversation. She may choose a seat closer to you even when other options exist. These gestures are rarely calculated. They are instinctive responses driven by emotional curiosity. That is why understanding psychology tricks behind attraction can help you see what words do not say. When someone consistently creates reasons to be around you, it usually means your presence has become meaningful to them. Do not rush to force the moment. Be calm. Be aware. Attraction grows stronger in spaces where people feel comfortable and safe. The great writer Anime Sneen once said, "Love never dies a natural death. It dies because we don't know how to replenish its source." Early attraction works the same way. It grows quietly through small interactions, shared laughter, and repeated presence. This is also where many men misunderstand the situation. They look for dramatic signals, bold confessions, or obvious flirting. But attraction often begins in much subtler ways. Two people simply enjoy being near each other. That is enough. That is where the spark begins. From the perspective of female psychology, closeness is a test of emotional safety. If she finds reasons to be near you, it often means she feels comfortable in your energy. She may not even realize she is doing it. That is the beauty of genuine connection. It happens naturally, without strategy or pressure. When you understand how to fall in love in a healthy way, you learn to appreciate these small moments rather than rushing past them. Love rarely starts with grand declarations. It begins with shared space, shared time, shared attention. You must understand this clearly. Attraction grows through familiarity. The more positive moments two people share, the stronger the emotional bond becomes. That is one of the oldest psychology tricks in human behavior. Psychologists call it the mere exposure effect, which simply means people tend to grow fond of what feels familiar and comfortable. The more you see each other, the more natural the connection becomes. But here is the important part. Do not chase aggressively. Do not force proximity in a way that feels unnatural. Authentic attraction works best when both people move toward each other willingly. If she finds reasons to be near you and you find reasons to be near her, then the emotional gravity is mutual. It is like two planets slowly orbiting closer together. Each interaction adds warmth. Each conversation builds curiosity. This is exactly how many lasting relationships begin. Two people simply enjoy each other's presence long before either one says the word love. When you study female psychology, you start to recognize that comfort and emotional ease are often stronger signals than bold flirtation. A woman who feels drawn to you may not always say it out loud, but she will show it through presence. She stays in the conversation a little longer. She laughs a little more easily around you. She appears in places where interaction can happen naturally. These are quiet signals of attraction. They are the early steps of how to fall in love without pressure or performance. As the philosopher Blaise Pascal wisely observed, the heart has its reasons which reason knows nothing of. Human connection is rarely logical. It moves through subtle cues, emotional energy, and shared moments that feel easy rather than forced. When you notice someone consistently choosing to be near you, do not dismiss it as coincidence. Pay attention. Respect the moment. Build the connection slowly. Speak with warmth. Listen carefully. Be present. These simple actions reinforce the emotional safety that allows attraction to grow. And remember this final truth. When two people are quietly finding reasons to be near each other, they are already participating in one of the oldest human stories ever written. They are beginning the delicate dance of how to fall in love, guided not by pressure or manipulation, but by natural emotional gravity that draws two lives gently closer together. If this moment feels familiar, pay attention. When two people keep finding reasons to be near each other, it's rarely an accident. It's the quiet gravity of attraction at work. Notice it. Respect it. Don't ignore the subtle signals life places right in front of you. If this insight resonated with you, like the video, subscribe for more powerful psychology and relationship wisdom, and drop this sentence in the comments to lock the lesson into your mind. Real attraction always finds a reason to come closer. 5. Sharing small vulnerabilities. You share small vulnerabilities. You begin opening up about little things, a rough day, an old memory, a small win, and they listen with more than their ears. When a crush is real, emotional intimacy often appears before physical closeness ever begins. At first, these moments seem ordinary. A quiet conversation after work, a short message late at night, a simple sentence like, "Today was harder than I expected." But watch carefully. Notice how the other person responds. They don't brush it aside. They lean in. They listen closely, not just to the words, but to the meaning behind them. That is not casual attention. That is emotional presence. And here is something important to understand. People rarely open their inner world to someone they feel nothing for. A person protects their deeper thoughts the way a homeowner protects the front door. Not everyone gets the key. So when someone begins sharing small stories from their life, a childhood memory, a challenge they faced, a moment that shaped them, it signals trust. Quiet trust, growing trust. Do not overlook these moments. They're powerful signals. You might hear something simple like, I almost quit that job years ago, or I was nervous before that meeting. Small details, but they reveal something deeper. The person is allowing you to see them as they truly are, not the polished version they show the world, the real version. This is where many men misunderstand attraction. They focus only on physical signals. They watch body language. They wait for obvious flirting. But emotional openness is often the earlier sign, the deeper sign. The real connection begins in conversation long before it appears in touch. Be aware of how the exchange flows. Do they share something personal and you feel comfortable sharing something back? That mutual openness matters. That rhythm matters. It means both of you are lowering your guard at the same time. That is how emotional chemistry forms. A high-value man understands this dynamic well. He doesn't rush the moment. He doesn't force the conversation. He simply creates a calm space where honesty feels natural. That calm confidence is part of his masculine energy. It makes people feel safe enough to open up. And here is the surprising truth. This emotional safety is one of the strongest ways to attract women. Not through pressure, not through performance, through presence, through steady attention, through the ability to listen without trying to control the conversation. Think of it like building a bridge. Each small vulnerability is one plank laid across the gap between two people. One story, one confession, one shared laugh about a difficult day. Slowly, the bridge becomes strong enough for something real to walk across. But remember this. Don't rush the process. Don't treat vulnerability like a strategy or a trick. Be sincere. Be grounded. That is what a high-value man does. His masculine energy shows through calmness, patience, and genuine curiosity about the other person's life. When you listen carefully, respond thoughtfully, and share a little of your own story, you create the kind of emotional atmosphere that naturally attracts women. Not because you are trying to impress them, because you are showing them who you really are. And that is where real attraction quietly begins. Not with grand gestures, not with dramatic moments, but with two people sitting across from each other, sharing small truths and realizing they feel strangely comfortable doing so. 6. Playful teasing and genuine compliments. Playful teasing and genuine compliments are often the quiet language of attraction, and a seasoned man learns to recognize this signal quickly. When two people are secretly drawn to each other, their words begin to carry a spark, light teasing, warm observations, small compliments that seem casual but carry real attention underneath. A man might say with a smile, "You always do that when you're nervous," and she laughs because she knows he noticed something personal. Or someone might quietly remark, "You have this calm energy. I like being around you." That is not random conversation. That is awareness. That is connection. It is the subtle message beneath the words, "I see you, and I appreciate what I see." Modern life is noisy and distracted. Phones buzz. Conversations rush. Most people barely listen. So when someone playfully teases you or offers a sincere compliment about something deeper than your appearance, your presence, your energy, your habits, it means they are paying attention. And attention is the currency of attraction. The Greek philosopher Epictetus once said, "We have two ears and one mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." A man with an iron mind understands this. He watches. He listens. He observes the small signals others miss. In the language of old Stoic wisdom, teasing is rarely about mockery. It is about comfort. People only tease when they feel relaxed around you. They only joke when they feel safe enough to drop their guard. That playful remark, that light jab followed by a smile, is often a quiet invitation into emotional closeness. Think about it. When a woman gently pokes fun at the way you always check the menu twice before ordering, she is not criticizing you. She is noticing you. She is studying you. And when you respond with calm humor instead of defensiveness, attraction grows naturally. This is where many men overthink things. They search for dramatic signals, grand gestures, clear declarations. But real chemistry rarely starts with fireworks. It begins with something far more subtle: playful energy, shared laughter, mutual observation. As the writer Mark Twain once joked, the human race has one really effective weapon, and that is laughter. Laughter lowers walls. Laughter builds connection. Laughter creates emotional alignment before either person admits what they feel. A man guided by Stoicism win principles understands this dynamic deeply. He does not chase validation. He does not force attraction. He creates an atmosphere of calm confidence where playful teasing and genuine compliments can exist naturally. He speaks directly. He observes carefully. He allows the conversation to breathe. This is old Stoic wisdom applied to modern relationships. Maintain composure, stay present, and let authentic signals reveal themselves. And here is the important lesson. Do not dismiss teasing as meaningless chatter. Do not brush off sincere compliments as politeness. Patterns matter. Repetition matters. When someone repeatedly finds little ways to tease you, compliment you, or highlight something unique about you, they are investing emotional attention. They're saying, in their own indirect way, "You stand out to me." A man with an iron mind recognizes this immediately. He does not panic. He does not rush. He simply acknowledges the moment and responds with grounded humor and warmth. That balance is powerful. That balance creates attraction without pressure. In modern life, especially for men between 35 and 70, this understanding is crucial. By this stage, you already know life is not about games or manipulation. It is about clarity, calm energy, and emotional intelligence. When playful teasing flows naturally between two people, it often means there is mutual curiosity, mutual attention, mutual enjoyment. That is the seed of real connection. And here is your instruction. Pay attention to tone, not just words. Watch how often someone finds reasons to tease you lightly or compliment your presence. Notice how conversations feel when you are together. Is there laughter? Is there warmth? Is there relaxed eye contact after the joke lands? Those are signals. Those are emotional breadcrumbs leading somewhere deeper. As the Roman emperor and Stoic thinker Marcus Aurelius wrote, waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one. A grounded man does not analyze every word with anxiety. He remains centered, present, observant. He understands that attraction grows in small moments, shared smiles, teasing remarks, quiet compliments that reveal attention. This is the mindset of Stoicism win. Calm awareness, steady confidence, emotional discipline, and above all, the iron mind that sees clearly without rushing to control the outcome. When teasing becomes comfortable and compliments feel sincere, do not ignore the signal. Recognize it. Appreciate it. Respond with calm humor and grounded confidence. Because sometimes the most powerful way someone says, "I like you," is by smiling and saying something playful that only the two of you truly understand. If this part resonated with you, pay attention, because playful teasing and sincere compliments are often the quiet language of attraction. When someone gently teases you or notices the small things about you, it's not random. It's recognition. It's interest. As the saying goes, flirting is simply attention with a spark. So if you've ever felt that moment, when a light joke or a genuine compliment carried a deeper meaning, don't ignore it. That's connection revealing itself in the simplest way. Now I want to hear from you. Drop this sentence in the comments to lock it in your mind and share the moment with others. Playful teasing and genuine compliments are the quiet signs that two people truly see each other. 7. Beautiful emotional tension. Beautiful emotional tension is one of the most subtle yet powerful signals that two people are quietly falling for each other. And if you pay attention, you will notice it in the small pauses between words, the slight hesitation before walking away, and the quiet moments that seem to stretch just a little longer than normal. This is not the kind of tension that feels uncomfortable or forced. No, this kind of tension feels warm, almost magnetic. It is the silent pull that keeps two people lingering in the same space even when the conversation has technically ended. You say goodbye, but neither of you moves right away. There is a glance, a soft smile, a small pause that says more than words ever could. Psychologists sometimes describe this moment as anticipatory chemistry, the emotional space where two people sense something meaningful is forming even before either of them admits it out loud. And here is the key insight you must understand. Attraction rarely begins with dramatic gestures. It begins with quiet emotional signals. It begins with presence. When you understand these psychology tricks, you start seeing the deeper layer of human connection that most people completely miss. A high-value man does not rush through these moments. He recognizes them. He allows them to exist. Do not rush to fill every silence with more talking. Be calm. Be present. Let the moment breathe. Because in female psychology, emotional tension is often where curiosity grows into attraction. When a woman feels that gentle anticipation, the feeling that something meaningful is slowly unfolding, her mind begins to imagine possibilities. That is how emotional interest begins to build. It is not forced. It is discovered. Think about the way many people handle interactions today. They move too fast. They talk too much. They try to impress instead of connect. Do not do that. Real attraction grows in the quiet spaces between words. That is where emotional awareness lives. That is where the psychology tricks of connection quietly operate beneath the surface. Notice the signs. The conversation ends, yet both of you linger. You walk together a little slower than necessary. You both hesitate before saying goodbye, almost as if neither of you wants the moment to end. That hesitation matters. That is emotional energy building. That is the early stage of how to fall in love. The famous writer Anime Sneen once wrote, "Love never dies a natural death. It dies because we don't know how to replenish its source." What she was pointing to is this exact emotional space, the delicate tension where curiosity and feeling begin to grow. When you recognize this moment, do not interrupt it with impatience. Do not rush to define the relationship too quickly. Be steady, be observant, be intentional. A man who understands female psychology knows that anticipation is powerful. Anticipation creates emotional depth. Anticipation creates intrigue. And intrigue is one of the most overlooked psychology tricks in attraction. Many men think attraction is about bold moves. Not always. Often it is about emotional rhythm. Step forward. Pause. Let the connection breathe. Then step forward again. This rhythm allows feelings to develop naturally rather than feeling pressured or artificial. And remember this important truth. When a woman feels comfortable in that quiet emotional tension, it means she feels safe being emotionally present with you. That is not a small signal. That is a meaningful one. It means your presence has created a space where curiosity, comfort, and attraction can grow together. Do not underestimate the power of that moment. If you want to understand how to fall in love in a healthy and grounded way, start by respecting these early emotional signals. Do not chase every second of attention. Do not try to control the outcome. Instead, be the man who understands the emotional dance of connection. Notice the pauses. Notice the lingering glances. Notice the tone of voice when someone says, "see you soon," and the way it sounds less like a plan and more like a quiet hope. These moments are where real attraction begins to reveal itself. And the more you understand these psychology tricks, the more clearly you will recognize the hidden language of human connection. Female psychology often responds to emotional presence more than flashy effort. So slow down. Stay grounded. Be aware. Let the moment unfold naturally. When two people share beautiful emotional tension, they are standing on the edge of something meaningful without needing to force it. That is the beginning of real connection. That is how curiosity becomes affection. That is how anticipation slowly becomes attachment. And sometimes, when handled with patience, respect, and emotional awareness, that quiet tension becomes the very first step in how to fall in love. 8. Others notice the connection. Sometimes the most revealing sign isn't what you feel inside. It's what everyone else quietly sees from the outside. People around you begin to notice something. Friends raise their eyebrows. A coworker smiles and casually asks, "So, what's going on between you two?" You might laugh it off. You might say, "Nothing." But deep down, you know why they're asking. Because when two people are drawn to each other, the world often notices it before the heart fully admits it. Human beings are extremely sensitive to subtle emotional signals: body language, tone of voice, eye contact, the way two people naturally gravitate toward the same space in a room. These signals speak louder than words, and observers pick up on them quickly. You may think you're being subtle. You may believe you're hiding your interest well, but connection has a kind of energy that leaks through small moments. That is what people notice. Maybe you're standing in a group conversation, and somehow the two of you end up facing each other more than anyone else. Maybe you laugh a little quicker at each other's jokes. Maybe you instinctively look at them first when something interesting happens. None of these things are dramatic. They are quiet signals. But when they appear together, they form a pattern. And patterns are easy to see from the outside. This is why friends sometimes become playful detectives. They notice the extra attention. They see the small smiles. They catch the moments of comfortable silence between you. That is when the teasing begins. A friend nudges you and says, "You two seem pretty close." Someone else jokingly calls you a team. At first, it might feel embarrassing, but don't dismiss it too quickly. Outsiders often see emotional chemistry with surprising clarity. A high-value man understands something important here. Don't panic. Don't overreact. Stay calm. Be grounded. When people notice a connection between you and a woman, it is often a sign that your masculine energy is naturally present. You're not forcing attention. You're not chasing approval. Instead, you're creating a relaxed space where attraction can quietly grow. That kind of presence tends to attract women without loud effort. But be careful. Don't rush the story just because others see sparks. Let the connection develop at its own pace. A high-value man moves with patience. He observes. He listens. He allows curiosity to unfold naturally. That calm confidence strengthens your masculine energy, and ironically, it makes it even easier to attract women who appreciate authenticity. Remember this simple truth. When two people share a genuine connection, it rarely stays hidden for long. The room can feel it. Friends can sense it. Sometimes even strangers can notice it in a brief interaction. It's like a quiet current running beneath the surface. So if people around you start raising their eyebrows and smiling knowingly, don't immediately deny it. Pause for a moment. Reflect honestly. Ask yourself a simple question. Is there something real here that I haven't fully admitted yet? Because sometimes the heart takes time to understand what the world has already seen. And when handled with patience, respect, and steady masculine energy, that small spark of attraction can slowly grow into something meaningful. Thank you for spending this time with me today. I truly appreciate you being here. Sometimes in life, the most meaningful connections don't arrive with loud announcements. They appear quietly. A glance that lingers a little longer. A conversation that feels effortless. A small moment that somehow stays in your mind long after it ends. And that is often how a real connection begins. If these signs felt familiar to you, pause for a moment and reflect. Think about the people in your life. Is there someone whose presence feels a little different, a little warmer, a little more meaningful? That gentle feeling may not be coincidence. It may be the early spark of something real. Here is my sincere advice. Don't rush it and don't pressure the moment. Genuine connection grows best when it is given space and patience. Be calm. Be present. Pay attention to the small signals people show you. Sometimes the most beautiful relationships begin quietly, with two people simply enjoying each other's presence before either of them fully understands what is happening. And remember this: confidence, kindness, and emotional awareness always make a man stand out. When you stay grounded, when you listen, and when you move with calm intention, you naturally create the kind of energy that draws people closer. If this video spoke to you, I'd really appreciate your support. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might be experiencing those same quiet butterflies. And before you go, tell me in the comments, have you ever experienced a mutual crush where both of you felt the connection but no one said it out loud yet? Thanks again for being here. Take care of yourself, stay thoughtful in your connections, and I'll see you in the next video. Women never forget a man who does these things for them. Psychology tricks. People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Maya Angelou. Let's be honest from the start. A woman may forgive you. She may keep living her life. She may smile, stay busy, and never mention your name again. But if you stirred something deep inside her, if your presence touched her emotions in a way that felt rare and real, that memory does not simply disappear. It stays, quietly, powerfully. And most men never fully understand how much influence they actually have in creating that kind of memory. The biggest mistake men make is thinking they will be remembered for what they bought, what they showed off, or how hard they tried to impress. That may catch her eye for a moment, but it does not stay in her heart. What lasts is different. What lasts is the way a man made her feel seen, understood, challenged, safe, excited, and emotionally alive. That is what lingers. That is what returns to her mind in silence, long after the moment has passed. The man a woman never forgets is rarely just the best-looking man or the man with the most money. More often, he is the one who understood the deeper language of connection. He knew when to speak and when to stay calm. He knew how to make her feel important without chasing her for approval. He brought strength without coldness. He brought mystery without games. He stood his ground without becoming harsh. In a world full of men who try too hard, he felt different because he was grounded in himself. He did not bend at every emotional wave. He did not crumble under pressure. He knew how to awaken emotion, not through tricks or empty performance, but through presence, confidence, and emotional control. That is the kind of man a woman remembers when the room is quiet and her thoughts wander backward. Here's the truth many men resist. Being unforgettable has very little to do with being flawless. It has everything to do with being authentic in a way that touches her deeply. A man becomes hard to forget when he understands how emotion works, when he knows that attraction is not built only through logic, but through emotional imprint. A woman remembers the man who felt real, the man who challenged her gently, the man who did not lose himself trying to keep her, the man who understood her emotional world with surprising clarity. That is why this matters. Not so you can pretend, not so you can manipulate, but so you can understand what truly leaves a mark. And once you understand that, you begin to see why some men are remembered for a season, while others stay in a woman's memory for years. Today, we're opening that door and looking closely at the 10 behaviors that make that kind of lasting impression. 1. The man who says no without fear. Let's get something clear right now. Most men are taught, directly or indirectly, that saying yes is the safest way to keep a woman interested. Say yes to her plans. Yes to her moods. Yes to things you don't even agree with. They believe this is kindness. They believe this is love. But don't confuse approval with attraction. That is where many men misunderstand both female psychology and the deeper psychology tricks behind emotional impact. A man who always says yes slowly disappears in her mind. He becomes predictable, easy, replaceable. Be honest with yourself. Anything that comes too easily is rarely valued deeply. Now here's the shift you must understand. The man who can say no, calmly and without fear, creates a completely different emotional response. Not because he is trying to control the situation, but because he is in control of himself. That is power. That is presence. That is what shapes how to fall in love in a real, lasting way. When you say no with clarity, you communicate something most men never do. I respect myself. And in female psychology, that message lands deeper than any grand gesture ever could. Don't be rude. Don't be dismissive. Be grounded. Be certain. Say no when it matters. Because a weak yes is forgettable, but a strong no is memorable. That is one of the simplest yet most overlooked psychology tricks in attraction. Women may react in the moment. They may question you. They may even push back. But don't get distracted by surface reactions. Look deeper. Emotionally, she is registering something important. This man is not easily influenced. This man has direction. This man cannot be bent just for approval. And that is exactly how to fall in love from a psychological standpoint, not through pleasing, but through emotional contrast. You must understand this. Respect always comes before deeper connection. If you remove respect, attraction cannot sustain itself. And respect grows when a man holds his ground. Too many men think saying no will push her away. The truth is the opposite. Saying no filters out the neediness that quietly destroys attraction. It makes your yes meaningful. It creates space. It creates tension. It makes her feel that being with you is a choice, not something she automatically controls. That is powerful. That is unforgettable. Think about it in real life. She asks you to cancel something important, your work, your purpose, your priorities, just to accommodate a moment. The average man folds instantly. He trades his structure for temporary peace. But you must not do that. You must pause. You must think. Then respond with calm certainty. No, I have priorities today. We'll plan something better later. No anger. No guilt. No apology for having a life. That moment right there carries more weight than hours of trying to impress her. Because now she sees you clearly. Not as someone chasing her approval, but as someone living with direction. And direction is attractive. Direction is rare. Direction is what shapes long-term desire. This is not about manipulation. This is about alignment. When your actions match your values, your presence becomes strong without effort. That is the core of female psychology most men ignore. Women don't remember every word you say. They remember how you made them feel in key moments. And moments where you stood firm, where you chose purpose over pleasing, where you didn't break under pressure, those moments stay. That is how to fall in love in a way that lasts. Not through constant agreement, but through emotional certainty. So don't chase approval. Don't over-explain. Don't sacrifice your standards just to keep things smooth. Be the man who can say yes with intention and no with confidence. Because in the long run, she won't remember the man who gave her everything. She will remember the man who knew when not to. 2. The man who walks away. Let's be clear about something most men avoid facing. The man who walks away is not the man who loses. He is the man who defines the entire game. That is what separates a high-value man from the rest. Most men, when faced with distance, disrespect, or emotional confusion, don't step back, they lean in harder. They chase. They over-explain. They try to fix what was never theirs to fix. Don't do that. That behavior doesn't build attraction. It erodes it. It signals that your center is not your own. And a man without his center cannot attract women in any meaningful, lasting way. Now understand this deeply. Nothing unsettles a woman more than a man who knows when to walk away. Not loudly, not dramatically, quietly, decisively. That is masculine energy in its purest form. Because while most men are driven by fear, fear of losing her, fear of being alone, fear of starting over, the unforgettable man is driven by standards. He does not stay where he is not respected. He does not negotiate his worth. He does not beg for consistency, attention, or basic decency. That is not arrogance. That is self-respect. Here's the uncomfortable truth you must accept. The man who walks away first, without begging or drama, is the man she never forgets. Why? Because he breaks the pattern she is used to. Women are accustomed to being chased. They expect men to fight for every bit of their attention, even when they give very little in return. But when a man steps back and removes himself, something shifts. Her focus changes. Her certainty disappears. Suddenly, she is no longer the one being pursued. She becomes the one questioning. Why didn't he chase me? Why didn't he try harder? That question stays. It lingers. It creates emotional weight. And that is how memory is formed. Don't misunderstand this. Walking away is not a tactic. It is not manipulation. You must not fake it. A high-value man walks away because he genuinely values his time, his energy, and his peace. That is the difference. If you walk away hoping she will chase, you are still attached. You are still seeking validation. But if you walk away because you refuse to stay where you are not valued, then you are grounded. That is real masculine energy. That is what allows you to naturally attract women without forcing anything. And here's where it becomes even more interesting. When you remove your presence, you also remove your availability. And what is no longer available becomes more noticeable. She begins to feel the absence. Not because you begged to be seen, but because you chose not to stay. That choice speaks louder than any words ever could. It tells her, without explanation, that your standards are firm, that your life does not revolve around her approval, that you are a man who chooses himself, and that is rare. Think about the example. She starts playing games. She ignores your calls. She responds when it suits her. She acts as if your presence is optional. A typical man reacts. He calls more. He texts more. He asks, "What's wrong?" He tries to regain control by investing more energy. But the unforgettable man does the opposite. He becomes still. He steps back. He walks away. No complaints. No arguments. No emotional outbursts. Just silence and distance. That silence is powerful. It communicates boundaries without needing to explain them. Over time, she may not admit it. She may never say it out loud, but she will remember. She will remember the man who did not tolerate disrespect, the man who did not bend under pressure, the man who chose his dignity over temporary attention. While she forgets the ones who stayed, who chased, who pleaded, she remembers the one who left. Because he was different, because he was centered, because he embodied masculine energy in a way most men never do. So understand this and carry it with you. Don't chase where you are not valued. Don't stay where you are not respected. Be the man who can walk away without hesitation. That is not loss. That is power. And when you truly live this way, you don't just attract women, you command respect, you build presence, and you become unforgettable without ever trying. And if this hit you, don't just watch. Decide who you are. Drop a comment right now. I walk away with self-respect. Like this video, subscribe for more real, unshakable wisdom, and remind yourself every day, the man who chooses himself is the man no one forgets. 3. The man who doesn't compete for her attention. 3. The man who does not compete for her attention, because the moment a man starts scrambling, proving, performing, and trying to outpace every other man in the room, he quietly gives away the very thing that makes him memorable, his center. Read that again. He gives away his center. Most men lose themselves in the chase. They text too much, explain too much, react too fast, and place a woman at the center of a life that was supposed to be built on purpose, discipline, and direction. That is the mistake. A man with self-respect does not treat attention like a trophy. He treats it like an investment. He does not spend it wildly. He does not throw it at anyone who happens to catch his eye. He does not beg to be noticed. He stands firm in his own path, and that is exactly why he is noticed. As Marcus Aurelius said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That is not just philosophy. That is instruction. In modern life, this matters more than ever. We live in a world of nonstop notifications, social media games, seen messages, half-hearted replies, and endless competition for validation. Too many men are trapped in silent auditions, trying to earn significance from women who can sense that hunger from a mile away. And hunger, when it is undisciplined, does not create attraction. It creates pressure. It creates sameness. It makes a man easy to replace because he starts behaving like everyone else. But the man who refuses to compete sends a different message without speaking it out loud. I know who I am. I know what I value. I am not here to campaign for attention. I am here to build a life. That message lands. It lands deeply. Women remember that man because he feels rare. He is not cold. He is not distant for effect. He is simply not available for nonsense. He has work to do, standards to keep, and a life to protect. That is what old Stoic wisdom has taught for centuries. Keep your peace, guard your focus, and never hand your inner balance to somebody else. Epictetus said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." There it is. Self-mastery first. Everything else second. When a man has an iron mind, he stops asking, "How do I get her attention?" and starts asking, "Is this connection worthy of my time, my energy, and my presence?" That question changes everything. It changes his tone. It changes his posture. It changes his choices. It makes him slower to chase, quicker to observe, calmer under pressure, and far more powerful in the only way that truly matters. He is no longer ruled by the fear of losing someone. And that freedom is magnetic. Women never forget the man who made them feel that his world was full, his purpose was real, and his attention had weight. Not because he played games, but because he lived with priority. He did not orbit her. He invited her to see whether she belonged in the life he was building. That is a different energy. Stronger, cleaner, more memorable. In Stoicism Win, this is the lesson men must tattoo onto the mind. Do not compete where you should be selecting. Do not perform where you should be observing. Do not chase where you should be building. Let other men fight to be seen. Let other men flood her phone. Let other men wear themselves out trying to look impressive. You stay grounded. You stay clear. You stay on mission. Because attention is currency and careless spending leads to emptiness. Wise investment leads to value. The man who gives attention to everyone becomes background noise. The man who offers it with intention becomes unforgettable. And here is the advice for modern men. Build a schedule you respect. Build a body that reflects discipline. Build work that sharpens your identity. Build friendships that keep you honest. And build a private life so meaningful that no woman's delayed reply can throw you off your path. That is how you win. That is how you become calm instead of reactive, focused instead of frantic, steady instead of scattered. This is old Stoic wisdom. This is Stoicism Win. This is the iron mind in action. Do not compete for a seat in somebody else's spotlight. Build your own light. Do not beg for attention. Become a man whose absence is noticed because his presence was never cheap. Do not live as if romance is the mission. Live as if purpose is the mission, and let romance meet you there. In the end, the men who chased, compared, and tried too hard will blur together. They will be forgotten because they abandoned themselves in the race. But the man who remained composed, the man who guarded his time, the man who stood apart without noise, without pleading, without panic, that man stays in her memory. Why? Because he reminded her of something rare. Value does not shout. Value does not scramble. Value does not compete. Value stands still. Value knows itself. Value moves with direction. Keep that truth close. Live it daily. Let Stoicism win shape your choices. Let old Stoic wisdom steady your spirit. Build the iron mind and never again trade your peace for somebody else's passing attention. 4. The man who exposes her flaws calmly. Here's a truth most men avoid because it demands courage. You are not helping a woman by pretending she has no flaws. That is not kindness. That is fear wearing a polite mask. And fear is always felt, even when it is not spoken. In female psychology, respect is never built on silence, it is built on clarity. A woman may smile when you let things slide, but she remembers the man who stood firm when it mattered. She remembers the one who didn't flinch. That is one of the most powerful psychology tricks you must understand if you truly want to know how to fall in love in a way that lasts. Don't stay quiet when something is clearly wrong. Don't ignore disrespect hoping to keep peace. That is not peace. That is quiet resentment growing beneath the surface. Be the man who addresses reality calmly. Be the man who speaks truth without anger. That is strength. That is control. That is what creates a lasting emotional imprint. Too many men believe that keeping a woman happy means avoiding conflict. Wrong. Temporary comfort kills long-term attraction. A woman tests not because she wants to break you, but because she wants to feel your stability. She wants to see if you can stand your ground without losing your center. That is the core of female psychology. If you fold every time, she may stay for convenience, but she will never stay in admiration. And admiration is what keeps her mind engaged. Without it, attraction fades quietly. This is where most men fail without realizing it. They think they are being good, but they're slowly becoming forgettable. And a forgettable man is never the one she thinks about when she is alone. Never the one she respects deeply. Never the one she tells stories about years later. Now understand this clearly. Exposing her flaws does not mean attacking her. It does not mean raising your voice or trying to win an argument. That is not strength. That is emotional loss of control. You must stay calm. You must stay grounded. You must speak with clarity and certainty. Say what needs to be said, then stand by it. No drama. No over-explaining. No seeking approval afterward. That is one of the most overlooked psychology tricks when learning how to fall in love the right way. Because love is not built on perfection. It is built on truth handled with respect. When you calmly point out what is wrong, you are not tearing her down, you are setting a standard. You are showing that your values matter. And that is exactly what earns respect. Remember this. A woman may forget compliments, gifts, and grand gestures over time, but she never forgets the man who made her stop and reflect. The man who challenged her in a composed, grounded way. The man who didn't lose himself just to keep her. As Marcus Aurelius said, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. That is your guide. Speak truth. Hold your frame. Stay composed. Because in female psychology, emotional control signals strength far louder than words ever could. And when she sees that you are not afraid to address reality, she begins to trust your leadership. Men need to wake up to this. If you are always walking on eggshells, always adjusting yourself to avoid discomfort, you are training her to see you as optional. But when you stand firm, calm, clear, and respectful, you become unforgettable. Not because you were perfect, but because you were real. Because you made her feel something deeper than comfort, you made her feel respect. And respect is the foundation of lasting attraction. That is the difference between being remembered for a moment and being remembered for a lifetime. If this hit you, don't just scroll past it. This is where most men get it wrong. Stop avoiding hard truths just to keep temporary peace. Be the man who stands firm, speaks calmly, and values respect over approval. That's the man who leaves a lasting mark. Like the video, subscribe for more unshakable wisdom, and drop this in the comments right now. I speak the truth calmly, and I stand my ground. 5. The man who controls his desire. This is where most men quietly lose the game without even realizing it. Desire is natural. Attraction is powerful. But when desire controls you, it exposes something deeper. Lack of discipline, lack of direction, lack of self-command. Don't be that man who loses his clarity the moment a beautiful woman walks into the room. Don't be the man who chases, who begs for attention, who folds under the pressure of his own impulses. That is not attractive. That is predictable. And predictable men are easily forgotten. A high-value man understands this. He feels desire, but he does not surrender to it. He stays grounded. He stays composed. He stays in control. Too many men confuse intensity with connection. They think wanting her badly is enough. It isn't. Women are not impressed by a man who cannot think straight around them. In fact, it does the opposite. The moment she senses that your emotions and actions are driven purely by lust, she knows something important. She has the upper hand. And once that dynamic is set, respect begins to fade. That is why you must be different. Be the man who can look at her, appreciate her beauty, and still remain centered. Be the man who doesn't rush, who doesn't overreact, who doesn't make her the center of his world too quickly. That calm restraint is masculine energy at its finest. Now understand this clearly. This is bigger than attraction. This is about discipline in every area of your life. If you cannot control yourself in front of a woman, how can you control your decisions, your goals, your future? Women notice patterns. They don't just look at what you say. They observe how you move, how you react, how you handle temptation. And when they see a man who is not ruled by his desires, something shifts. Respect grows. Curiosity builds. You begin to attract women not because you chase them, but because your presence feels rare. The truth is simple but uncomfortable. Most men are too available, too eager, too quick to give everything away. They text too fast. They agree too easily. They show too much too soon. And in doing so, they remove all mystery, all tension, all intrigue. Don't do that. Scarcity creates value. Restraint creates curiosity. A high value man knows when to step forward and when to step back. He knows that attraction is not built through constant pursuit, but through controlled presence. That is how you attract women on a deeper level, through patience, through confidence, through emotional discipline. Think about the psychological impact. A woman is used to men wanting her immediately. She expects it. She anticipates it. But when she meets a man who doesn't instantly fall into that pattern, it disrupts her expectations. She starts asking herself questions. Why is he different? Why isn't he reacting like the others? What is he holding back? And those questions create emotional tension. That tension lingers. And the longer it lingers, the more unforgettable you become. This is not manipulation. This is self-mastery. This is masculine energy expressed through control, not force. Don't misunderstand this. You are not suppressing desire. You are directing it. You are choosing when and how to express it. That is power. That is maturity. That is what separates a man who is respected from a man who is simply tolerated. A high-value man desires deeply, but he moves wisely. He doesn't rush physical connection just to satisfy a moment. He builds anticipation. He creates space. He allows attraction to grow naturally without forcing it. And in doing so, he becomes unforgettable. So remember this. Don't be easy. Don't be predictable. Don't be controlled by your impulses. Be disciplined. Be composed. Be intentional. Because the man who desires her and still controls himself, that is the man she never forgets. 6. The man who makes her earn his respect. 6. The man who makes her earn his respect. This is where most men get it completely wrong, and it's costing them more than they realize. Too many men walk into a room, see a beautiful woman, and immediately hand over admiration, attention, and validation like it's free candy. Stop doing that. Understand this clearly. Anything given too easily loses its weight. It loses its meaning. It loses its power. As Marcus Aurelius once reminded us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That strength begins with how you give your respect. A man grounded in old Stoic wisdom does not hand out respect based on appearance. He observes behavior, consistency, and character. He watches. He listens. He evaluates. That is the mindset of an iron mind. That is the path of Stoicism win. Now listen carefully. The man women never forget is not the one who praises them instantly, not the one who rushes to impress, not the one who bends himself just to be liked. No, the unforgettable man is the one who stands firm, calm, centered, unmoved by surface-level attraction. He makes her earn his respect through how she shows up, how she speaks, how she treats him, how consistent she is over time. This flips her internal wiring. Why? Because she's used to men chasing. She's used to men offering everything up front. And when you don't do that, when you hold your ground, you become rare. And rarity creates value. Modern life has made this problem worse. Social media has trained men to compete for attention. Likes, messages, quick validation, it's everywhere. But a man guided by old Stoic wisdom does not play that game. He doesn't chase attention. He builds presence. He doesn't react emotionally. He responds with clarity. He doesn't rush to prove himself. He lets time reveal who deserves access to him. That is Stoicism win in action. That is how you separate yourself from the crowd. Let's make this practical. When you meet a woman, don't rush to elevate her. Be respectful, yes, but measured. Let her actions speak. Does she respect your time? Does she communicate clearly? Does she show consistency? These are the standards. And you must have standards. Because without standards, you have no structure. And without structure, you have no identity. As Epictetus said, don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. That means you don't tell her she needs to earn your respect. You show it through your behavior, through your patience, through your discipline. Here's the truth most men avoid. If you respect every woman equally without any filter, you are not being noble, you are being predictable. And predictability kills attraction. It signals that your attention has no value, that your approval costs nothing. And what costs nothing is remembered by no one. But the man who lives with an iron mind, who operates from Stoicism understands that respect is a currency. It must be invested wisely. It must be protected. And here's where it gets powerful. When a woman senses that your respect is not automatic, something shifts inside her. She begins to lean in. She begins to qualify herself. She begins to show her best qualities, not because you demanded it, but because your standards quietly required it. This is not manipulation. This is alignment. You are simply refusing to lower yourself. You are inviting her to rise. And deep down, that challenge is something she respects. Repeat this to yourself. Respect is earned, not given. Say it again. Respect is earned, not given. Let that sink in. Live it. Apply it. Because when you respect yourself first, truly, deeply, without compromise, others will feel it. They may not understand it immediately, but they will recognize it. And they will respond to it. This is how you build presence. This is how you create lasting impact. Not through noise, not through chasing, but through quiet strength, through discipline, through clarity. That is old Stoic wisdom. That is Stoicism win. And that is how you develop an iron mind that cannot be shaken by beauty, emotion, or pressure. So don't rush. Don't give away your value. Don't seek approval. Be the man who observes before he invests. Be the man who respects himself enough to set a standard. Because in the end, the man who makes her earn his respect is not just remembered. He is respected, desired, and never forgotten. If this hit you, then you already see what most men ignore. Respect is not something you hand out. It's something you protect. Stop giving it away too easily. Start setting a standard. Because the moment you respect yourself first is the moment everything changes. If you're ready to become that man, drop this in the comments now. Respect is earned, and I never give it cheaply. 7. The man who withholds validation. 7. The man who withholds validation is the one who understands something most men overlook. Attention is a currency, and if you spend it carelessly, it becomes worthless. Most men hand out compliments nonstop. They praise her looks, her voice, her presence, every small thing, thinking this will make her feel special, thinking this is how to fall in love. Don't do that. That is the fastest way to blend into the background. When validation is constant, it becomes invisible. It loses impact. It feels routine. And in a world where a woman already receives endless attention from social media, from coworkers, from strangers, your voice becomes just another echo. Be different. Be intentional. Be measured. That is where real psychology tricks begin to take effect, because female psychology responds not to excess, but to contrast. When you don't immediately validate, you create space. Space creates curiosity. And curiosity is the spark that keeps a person thinking about you long after you're gone. You must understand this clearly. Withholding validation is not about being distant or indifferent. It is about being selective. It is about observing her actions, her consistency, her attitude, and then choosing your words carefully. When you finally give a compliment, it lands with weight. It feels earned. It feels real. That is how to fall in love in a deeper, more lasting way, not through constant praise, but through meaningful recognition. Most men react instantly. They see beauty and they reward it without thought. But a man who understands female psychology pauses. He watches. He lets her reveal who she is beyond the surface. And when he speaks, his words are grounded in truth, not impulse. That is what separates noise from presence. Don't rush to approve everything she does. Don't feel pressured to constantly reassure her. That need to please will quietly reduce your value in her eyes. Instead, be calm. Be grounded. Be a man whose approval is not automatic, but intentional. This doesn't push her away, it pulls her in. Because now she feels something different. She feels the need to understand you. She wonders what earns your respect. And that question stays in her mind. This is where powerful psychology tricks take shape because people don't remember what is freely given. They remember what they had to earn. Think about it. She will forget the 100 men who praised her without thinking. Their words blur together. They carry no identity. But she will remember the one man who held back. The one man who made her pause and ask, "Why hasn't he said anything yet?" That question creates emotional tension. And emotional tension creates memory. This is how to fall in love on a psychological level, not by overwhelming her with attention, but by giving her something rare, your discernment. You must train yourself to value your words. Speak less, but mean more. Don't chase moments to compliment her. Wait for moments that deserve it. When she shows character, when she shows effort, when she shows something beyond appearance, that is when you acknowledge it. That is when your words matter. And when they matter, they stay with her. This approach aligns perfectly with female psychology because attraction is not built on abundance, it is built on significance. Too much validation removes significance. Selective validation creates it. So remember this. You are not here to impress every moment. You are here to be remembered. And the man who is remembered is never the loudest, never the most eager, never the one who gives everything away at the start. He is the one who understands timing, the one who understands restraint, the one who uses psychology tricks with intention, not desperation. Be that man. Speak with purpose. Hold your validation until it counts. Because when it finally comes, it won't just be heard, it will be felt. And that feeling is what she will never forget. 8. The man who breaks her routine. 8. The man who breaks her routine is the man who leaves a mark that lingers long after he's gone. Because the truth is simple, women crave excitement far more than they openly admit. Yet most men fall into the same quiet trap of predictability. Sending the same texts, planning the same dates, showing up with the same energy until everything feels safe and then slowly forgettable. Don't be that man. Don't confuse comfort with connection. That is where attraction quietly fades. A high-value man understands something deeper. He knows that emotional spark lives in contrast, in surprise, in the moments that interrupt the expected flow of life. He doesn't overwhelm. He doesn't perform. He shifts the energy. One day calm, the next playful. One moment grounded, the next intriguing. That is masculine energy in motion. It is not chaos, it is controlled unpredictability. And that is what begins to attract women on a level that goes beyond logic. Be aware of this. If she can predict your next move, she stops feeling curiosity. If she can script your behavior in her mind, she stops leaning in emotionally. That is human nature. Familiarity without variation dulls the senses. But when you break her routine, when you introduce something unexpected, something slightly outside her usual experience, you awaken something inside her. You make her feel present again, alive again. That is the difference. Not louder, not bigger, just different. A high-value man doesn't chase attention. He creates moments that naturally hold it. You must understand, this isn't about being extreme or reckless. Don't misread that. It's not about grand gestures or trying too hard to impress. That often backfires. It's about subtle shifts. Suggest a spontaneous change of plan. Take her somewhere she didn't expect. Say something honest when she expects the usual polite answer. Break the rhythm just enough to create curiosity. That is how masculine energy expresses itself, not through force, but through presence and unpredictability that feels effortless. And that is exactly how you attract women without needing to convince them. Most men operate on autopilot. They repeat what they think works. They play it safe. But safe becomes invisible over time. And invisible men are not remembered. Don't be invisible. Be intentional. Be aware. When you show that you are not bound by routine, that you are not just reacting, but actively shaping the experience, you stand apart immediately. That is the energy of a high-value man. He leads the moment without controlling it. He introduces novelty without losing his center. There's a deeper layer here. Routine creates comfort, yes, and comfort has its place. But desire does not grow in comfort alone. Desire needs contrast. It needs a slight edge of the unknown. That is what keeps emotional tension alive. And tension, when balanced correctly, is what makes a woman think about you when you're not there. It's what makes her replay moments. It's what makes her feel something beyond the surface. And once she feels that, you stay in her mind. So don't aim to be perfect. Don't aim to be predictable. Be present. Be intentional. Be slightly unexpected. That is enough. That is powerful. Because at the end of the day, it's not the man who follows the routine that she remembers. It's the man who gently, confidently, and naturally breaks it. 9. The man who challenges her illusion of control. 9. The man who challenges her illusion of control is the man she never forgets, and this is where most men quietly lose their power without even realizing it. Understand this clearly. Many women may say they want control, but deep down, they do not respect a man they can fully control. That is not opinion, that is pattern. And too many men, especially in today's world, hand over that control without resistance. They let her decide everything, set the tone, lead the direction, and in doing so, they slowly disappear. Not all at once, but piece by piece, decision by decision, until there is nothing left to admire. This is where old Stoic wisdom becomes your weapon. The Stoics taught one simple truth: control yourself, not others. And when you master yourself, you naturally lead others. That is Stoicism win. That is an iron mind in action. You do not need to argue. You do not need to dominate. You do not need to raise your voice. You simply stand firm, calm, grounded, unshaken. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. That strength is what shifts her perception. Because when she tests, when emotions rise, when pressure appears, you do not fold. You do not chase approval. You do not surrender your direction. You stay steady. And that steadiness is rare. That steadiness is attractive. That steadiness is unforgettable. Look at modern relationships today. Many men are afraid to disagree, afraid to lead, afraid to say, "No, this is what I believe is right." But that fear costs you respect. And without respect, attraction fades. Slowly, quietly, but inevitably. You must understand this. Leadership is not control. Leadership is clarity. Leadership is knowing where you stand and not abandoning it just to keep peace. Because peace built on self-betrayal is not peace. It is quiet frustration waiting to explode. The man she never forgets is the one who challenges her illusion, not by fighting her, but by not submitting to it. He listens, but he decides. He considers, but he leads. He respects her voice, but he does not lose his own. That is old Stoic wisdom applied to modern life. That is Stoicism win in real time. And that is how an iron mind operates. Epictetus once said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." If you are constantly adjusting yourself to please, to avoid tension, to maintain approval, then you are not leading. You are reacting. And a reactive man is predictable. A predictable man is forgettable. But a man who stands calm in the storm, who does not rush to fix every emotion, who does not crumble under pressure, that man becomes a reference point, a standard, a memory that lingers long after he is gone. So wake up to this. Stop giving away your direction. Stop outsourcing your decisions. Stop thinking that being agreeable will make you valued. It will not. Be respectful. Yes. Be understanding. Absolutely. But be rooted. Be firm. Be clear. That is the difference. That is the edge. That is the silent power of an iron mind. Repeat it to yourself. I lead my life. I do not follow moods. I do not abandon my values. I stand steady. Because when you do this consistently, not occasionally, not when it's easy, but always, you shift everything. Her behavior changes. Her respect grows. Her attraction deepens. Not because you forced it, but because you embodied it. That is Stoicism win. That is old Stoic wisdom lived out loud. And that is how you become the man she never forgets. If this message hit you, then you already feel the truth most men ignore. Don't just watch, apply it. Step into your role. Lead with calm, steady confidence. That's where respect begins. Like the video, share it with a man who needs to hear this, and subscribe for more real wisdom. Now lock it in. Go down to the comments and write this statement. I lead with confidence, I stand firm, and I am never controlled. 10. The man who leaves a scar, not just a memory. 10. The man who leaves a scar, not just a memory. Every woman has memories of men, but most of those memories fade with time, like footprints washed away by the tide. What stays is different. What stays is the emotional imprint, the kind that reshapes how she thinks, how she feels, how she approaches love. That is what people often misunderstand when they talk about attraction, because this is where true psychology tricks and deep female psychology come into play. The man she never forgets is not the one who tried the hardest to please her, not the one who bent himself into whatever shape she wanted, but the one who stood firm in who he was. Be that man. Understand this clearly. Being liked is easy. Being remembered is rare. And being unforgettable requires something deeper, something most men are afraid to step into. You must stop chasing approval. Don't try to be the safest option. Don't try to be the man who never disrupts her emotions. That is not how to fall in love in a way that lasts. Real connection, the kind that leaves a lasting mark, comes from emotional intensity, from authenticity, from moments that challenge her patterns and make her feel something real. That is where psychology tricks meet truth, because the most powerful trick is not manipulation, it is presence. It is being grounded, calm, and unshaken when situations get uncomfortable. It is calling things out when needed, not with anger, but with clarity. It is knowing your worth and acting from it consistently. That leaves a mark. That creates the kind of emotional contrast she cannot forget. Most men avoid this. They think if they just keep things smooth, agreeable, easy, they will win her over. But smooth fades. Easy becomes invisible. You must understand female psychology at a deeper level. What creates attraction is not comfort alone, but tension, polarity, and emotional depth. When you stand firm in your values, when you challenge her thinking, when you don't immediately give in to every mood or expectation, you create a dynamic that engages her mind and emotions at a higher level. That is how to fall in love in a way that actually lasts, because it is not built on surface-level approval, but on something she feels in her core. And that feeling stays. A memory can disappear because it was never anchored in anything strong. But a scar, an emotional imprint, stays because it changed something inside her. Again, not through harm, not through negativity, but through impact. Through moments where she saw a man who could not be easily influenced, who did not lose himself, who brought something different into her life. That is the man she replays in her mind long after he is gone. That is the man she compares others to. So be intentional. Don't drift through interactions hoping to be liked. Be present. Be grounded. Be willing to create moments that matter. Use psychology tricks not as manipulation, but as awareness, understanding how emotions are formed, how attraction grows, how female psychology responds to strength, consistency, and authenticity. And most importantly, stop aiming to be temporary. Aim to be impactful. Because at the end of the day, many men will pass through her life. Most will be forgotten. But the one who made her feel something real, something deep, something that challenged her and awakened her, that man becomes unforgettable. That man leaves a scar, not just a memory. Conclusion. Here's the truth most people won't say. Women don't fall for the safest man. They fall for the man who made them feel the deepest. Even if that feeling was uncomfortable. That's why they forget the one who gave them everything. And remember the one who changed them. So here's your wake-up call. Stop trying to be liked. Be remembered. Not through games. Not through pretending. But through strength, boundaries, and self-respect. Because in the end, it's not about how many women you meet. It's about how many can never forget you. This means she misses you too much, but she's hiding her true feelings. Psychology tricks. Sometimes the strongest feelings are the ones we try the hardest to hide. Listen carefully. She's thinking about you more than you realize, but she won't say it. She won't text first. She won't give you the clear signal you're hoping for. And if you confront her directly, she'll likely brush it off, laugh it away, or shift the conversation like it never mattered. Now here's where most men get it completely wrong. There is a specific behavior, subtle, almost confusing, that men often read as disinterest. They assume she's pulling away. They assume she doesn't care. But in reality, that exact behavior can be the strongest sign she's missing you deeply and trying to hide it. You have to understand this. Women don't express longing the same way men do. They don't always move closer when they feel something. Sometimes they step back. They mask it. They protect it. What looks like distance can actually be emotional intensity under control. What feels like coldness can be restrained. And this is where the danger lies. If you misread her silence, you might withdraw right when she's becoming emotionally invested. You might go quiet when she's hoping you'll stay steady. And in that moment, you don't just lose connection, you lose the chance to understand what was really there. The truth is, her words might stay neutral, even detached. But her behavior, small shifts, subtle reactions, quiet patterns, tells a completely different story. That's where the real message lives. Not in what she says, but in what she does without realizing you're paying attention. So before you jump to conclusions, pause. Don't react too quickly. Don't assume absence of effort means absence of feeling. Because sometimes the woman who seems the most distant is the one fighting the hardest not to show how much she actually cares. And that leads to the real question you need to face. If she's hiding it this carefully, what is she afraid of revealing? And are you calm and aware enough to see it? Sign 1. Silent social media watching. Here's the truth most men miss. You think silence means distance. You think no likes, no comments, no messages means no interest. That is where you're wrong. That is where understanding female psychology changes everything. Because what looks like absence is often hidden presence. What looks like indifference is often controlled emotion. And if you pay attention, really pay attention, you'll start to see the pattern behind what many call psychology tricks. Subtle, quiet, but incredibly revealing. Sign 1 is simple on the surface, but deep when you understand it. Silent social media watching. She watches everything. Every story. Every update. Every small glimpse into your life. And yet, nothing. No like. No comment. No reaction. Just her name quietly appearing in your viewer list again and again, like a shadow that never speaks. You must not ignore this. You must not misread it. Because this behavior is not random. It is intentional restraint. It is controlled curiosity. It is emotion, carefully hidden behind distance. Think about it. In today's world, social media is the easiest place to show interest. One tap, one emoji, one short comment. That's all it takes. So when she chooses not to do that, but still shows up every single time, you need to ask yourself a better question. Not, why isn't she engaging, but why is she always watching? That is the shift. That is where understanding female psychology begins to separate you from the average man who reacts instead of observing. Because here's what's really happening. She misses you, more than she wants to admit. But she refuses to expose that vulnerability. So she creates a safe distance, watching without being seen, present without being obvious, connected without commitment. That is one of the most common psychology tricks used when emotions are strong but guarded. She wants to know how you're doing. She wants to see who you're with. She wants to feel close to your life again. But she also wants control. Control over how much she reveals. Control over how much power she gives you. And this is where many men fail. They see silence and assume rejection. They see no interaction and assume disinterest. Don't do that. Don't jump to conclusions. Be calm. Be observant. Because a woman who truly doesn't care doesn't watch consistently. She doesn't check in daily. She doesn't follow your updates like a routine. Indifference is quiet, but it is also absent. This is not absence. This is silent attention. And silent attention is still attention. Now, understand this deeper. When she watches but doesn't react, she is protecting her image. She doesn't want to appear too available. She doesn't want you to feel like she's chasing, especially if there's history between you, especially if emotions were complicated. So instead, she chooses a middle ground, close enough to feel connected, far enough to stay safe. That is the balance she creates. And if you don't understand it, you will misread it completely. You must also recognize the emotional discipline behind this behavior. This is not accidental scrolling. This is intentional checking. People don't repeatedly view someone's content unless there is emotional relevance. That is human nature. That is part of how we fall in love or stay emotionally attached. We seek information, we seek connection, we seek presence, even if we don't speak. And in her case, she is choosing the quiet path, watching instead of reaching out, observing instead of expressing. But here's where it gets even more interesting. The consistency is the signal. One or two views mean nothing. Anyone can scroll by. But when it's every story, every time, without fail, that is a pattern. That is behavior driven by interest, not coincidence. That is her routine. And routines reveal priorities. If she keeps showing up in your digital space, it means you are still occupying space in her mind. And that matters more than any like or comment ever could. Now, don't get carried away. Don't overreact. Don't message her immediately asking, "Why are you watching my stories?" That is a mistake. That shows neediness. That shows you don't understand the game of emotional control. Instead, stay grounded. Stay composed. Observe without attachment. That is strength. That is power. Because once you understand these subtle psychology tricks, you stop chasing obvious signs and start recognizing hidden ones. And here's another layer most men overlook. When she watches silently, she is also testing you. Yes, testing. She wants to see how you live your life. Are you moving forward? Are you confident? Are you stable? Are you interesting? She is gathering information, building a quiet picture of who you are now. Because people don't just miss the past, they evaluate the present. And in her silence, she is doing exactly that. So don't perform. Don't try to impress. Be real. Be consistent. Be the man who doesn't need validation from views or reactions. Because ironically, that is what increases attraction. When you are not reacting emotionally to her silence, you become more grounded, more centered, more attractive. That is how you align with the deeper truths of female psychology and even the early stages of how to fall in love, not through chasing, but through presence and self-control. Let's be clear. This sign alone doesn't guarantee anything, but it reveals something important. She is not disconnected. She is not indifferent. She is still watching, still aware, still emotionally engaged, just in a quiet, controlled way. And once you understand that, you stop making emotional mistakes. You stop overthinking. You stop reacting impulsively. Instead, you observe patterns. You read behavior. You understand meaning beyond words. Because attraction is not always loud. Missing someone is not always expressed. Sometimes it hides. Sometimes it watches from a distance. Sometimes it shows up in the smallest actions that most people ignore. And this, silent social media watching, is one of the clearest examples of that hidden emotional presence. So remember this. Don't chase noise. Pay attention to patterns. Don't be fooled by silence. Learn to read it. Because in the world of psychology tricks, in the depth of female psychology, and in the subtle process of how to fall in love, the loudest feelings are often the ones that are never spoken. Sign 2. Disguised initiation. Here's the second sign, and if you understand this one deeply, it will change how you read her behavior forever. She reaches out, but she hides the intention. A random meme sent at 11 p.m. A casual question about something that happened 3 weeks ago. An article that somehow reminded her of you. On the surface, it looks small, almost meaningless. But don't be fooled. It is never about the content. It is always about the connection. That is the truth you must hold on to. She is not texting because the meme matters. She is texting because you matter. She is not asking about the past because she needs information. She is asking because she is searching for a way back into your presence without exposing her feelings. Understand this clearly. A woman who truly doesn't care does not reach out at all. Silence is easy when there is no emotion. Distance is natural when there is no attachment. So when she creates a reason, any reason, to talk to you, that is effort. Subtle, quiet effort. And effort always reveals interest. But here's where most men get it wrong. They look at the surface. They judge the message. It's just a meme. It's just a random question. And they dismiss it. Don't do that. Be sharper than that. Be aware. A high-value man does not react only to words. He reads patterns. He reads timing. He reads energy. Because the real signal is not in what she sends, it is in when she sends it. Late nights, quiet weekends, moments when the world slows down and distractions fade. That is when emotions rise. That is when thoughts become louder. That is when missing someone becomes undeniable. During the day, she is busy. She is distracted. She is composed. But at night, it is different. At night, the truth comes closer to the surface. And instead of saying, "I miss you," she sends a meme. Instead of saying, "I was thinking about you," she sends a question. It feels safer. It feels controlled. It protects her from rejection. That is what you must understand. Don't underestimate this behavior. It is emotional strategy. She is opening the door, but pretending it just happened to be open. She is reaching out, but wrapping it in something casual. That is not confusion. That is intention hidden behind comfort. And if you are not paying attention, you will miss it completely. Now listen carefully. Your response matters just as much as her action. Don't overreact. Don't jump in with excitement like you've been waiting all day. That signals neediness. And neediness weakens attraction. At the same time, don't ignore it either. That signals disinterest. And disinterest shuts the door she just carefully opened. You must walk the middle path. Calm, grounded, present. That is masculine energy in action. You respond, but you don't chase. You engage, but you don't lean too far in. A high-value man understands this balance. He knows that attraction is not built on intensity alone. It is built on rhythm. Push and pull. Space and connection. If she reaches out, you acknowledge it. You respond with clarity. You respond with calm confidence. Not too fast. Not too eager. That is how you attract women without losing your center. That is how you show interest without giving away your power. And here's something deeper you must accept. She is not hiding her feelings because she doesn't have them. She is hiding them because they are strong. The stronger the feeling, the more careful the behavior. People protect what matters to them. They guard it. They disguise it. So when she initiates in this subtle, indirect way, it is not a sign of indifference. It is often a sign of emotional investment that she is not ready to fully reveal. But don't romanticize it either. Stay grounded. Stay aware. Just because she reaches out does not mean she is ready for something real. It means she feels something. That is all. And your role is not to chase the feeling. Your role is to remain centered in yourself, to observe, to understand, to respond with strength, not impulse. Too many men lose themselves in moments like this. A late-night message comes in, and suddenly their mind starts racing. She must be thinking about me. This means something big. And they overextend. They text too much. They try too hard. Don't do that. Be disciplined. Emotional control is what separates a grounded man from a reactive one. And emotional control is deeply attractive. It signals stability. It signals confidence. It signals that you are not easily shaken. That is what draws people in. Not just words, not just actions, but presence. A steady, calm presence that does not get carried away by every small signal. You must be that man. You must develop that level of awareness. Because when you do, you stop chasing clarity and you start recognizing it naturally. Now think about this. If she sends you something random at 11 p.m., what is really happening? She could be doing anything else. Watching something, scrolling endlessly, talking to someone else. But she chose to reach out to you. That choice matters. That decision reflects where her attention is. And attention is one of the clearest indicators of interest. But again, don't get lost in it. Notice it. Appreciate it. But don't depend on it. That is the difference. A man who depends on these signals becomes emotionally unstable. A man who notices them without attachment becomes powerful. He stays in control of himself, and that control creates natural attraction. Be honest with yourself. You don't need constant reassurance. You don't need obvious signs. You don't need her to say, "I miss you," directly, because you can see it in her actions, in her timing, in her subtle attempts to reconnect. That level of awareness puts you ahead of most men. And that is how you naturally attract women, by understanding what others overlook. Let's go deeper. Why does she disguise her initiation instead of being direct? Because vulnerability is risky. Because expressing feelings opens the door to rejection. And most people are not ready to face that openly. So they soften it. They hide it behind humor, behind randomness, behind casual conversation. It gives them an exit. If you respond coldly, she can pretend it didn't matter. If you respond warmly, she can continue the connection without ever admitting her true intention. That is emotional self-protection. And it is human. You've probably done it too, reaching out for a small reason when the real reason was much bigger. So don't judge it. Understand it. And when you understand it, you respond with more wisdom. Be steady. Be grounded. That is masculine energy at its core. Not loud, not forceful, just calm, consistent strength. The kind of energy that does not need validation. The kind of energy that does not rush. The kind of energy that allows things to unfold naturally. And here's the truth you must not ignore. If she keeps doing this, if the random messages keep coming, if the timing stays the same, if the pattern becomes consistent, that is no longer. That is behavior. And behavior reveals intention over time. One message means little. Repeated behavior means everything. So don't analyze one moment. Observe the pattern. That is how you stay grounded in reality. That is how you avoid overthinking. And that is how you maintain your position as a high-value man, someone who sees clearly, acts deliberately, and never loses himself in uncertainty. In the end, remember this simple principle. When a woman misses you, she rarely says it directly. She shows it indirectly, through small openings, through disguised initiation, through moments that seem casual, but are carefully chosen. Your job is not to chase those moments. Your job is to recognize them, respond with calm confidence, and continue living your life with purpose. Don't overthink. Don't overreact. Be present. Be steady. That is how you win. That is how you build attraction. And that is how you become the kind of man who doesn't just read signals, but understands them deeply, without ever losing control of himself. Don't ignore this. Don't misread it. When she reaches out randomly, that's not random. That's controlled desire. That's her missing you, but protecting her pride. A man who understands this doesn't chase blindly. He observes. He stays grounded. He responds with calm confidence. If you see the pattern, don't stay passive. Step into awareness. And if you're that man who understands the difference between noise and meaning, drop this in the comments right now. I recognize the signal, and I move with calm power. Like the video, subscribe for more sharp insight, and remember, real strength is not reacting, it's understanding. Sign 3. Talking about you to others. Sign 3 is where everything becomes subtle, strategic, and deeply revealing. She talks about you to others. Not loudly, not directly, not in a way that exposes her feelings. But she does it. She brings up your name in conversation. She asks mutual friends about you. She casually circles back to you as if it just happened. Understand this clearly. Nothing here is random. This is intentional behavior wrapped in softness. This is emotional presence without emotional exposure. As Carl Jung once said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. And in this case, everything she says about you reveals what she feels, but refuses to admit. You must see it. You must not ignore it, because this is how she keeps you alive in her world without risking rejection. Think about modern life. People don't just talk for no reason. Attention is currency. Time is limited. Conversations are selective. So when your name appears in her conversations, especially when you are not there, it means you occupy space in her mind. and that is power. Quiet power. Hidden power. She is maintaining a connection indirectly because direct connection feels risky. That is the key. She is protecting herself, not distancing from you. Protecting herself. Do not confuse the two. Most men make that mistake. They assume silence means absence. It does not. It often means intensity being controlled. From the perspective of old Stoic wisdom, this behavior is not surprising. People act based on what they fear and what they desire at the same time. She desires connection, but she fears exposure. So she chooses the middle path. She talks about you instead of talking to you. She keeps you close without stepping forward. That is emotional strategy. That is human nature. And if you understand this, you gain an advantage that most men never reach. You begin to see patterns instead of reacting to moments. Listen carefully. When she asks about you, she is investing energy. When she mentions your name, she is reinforcing your presence. When she redirects conversations toward you, she is feeding a connection she does not want to lose. This is not casual. This is not accidental. This is deliberate. And your response must be equally deliberate. Do not chase. Do not rush. Do not expose your need for validation. That is where most men lose control. Instead, hold your frame. Stay grounded. Be the man who does not react impulsively. Be the man with an iron mind. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Her behavior is outside your control. Your interpretation is within your control. Your reaction defines your position. So don't misread the signal. Don't panic. Don't overanalyze every word. See the pattern. Trust the pattern. Then act with discipline. In today's world, where communication is instant and constant, indirect behavior stands out even more. If she truly didn't care, you would disappear from her conversations entirely. No mention. No curiosity. No trace. But that's not what's happening here. Instead, she keeps bringing you into the room, even when you're not there. That means something. That means you matter. Quietly, privately, but significantly. Now here is where most men fail. They hear that she is asking about them, and they immediately feel a rush of excitement. They start imagining outcomes. They start planning moves. They lose their center. Don't do that. That is emotional dependency. That is the opposite of Stoicism win. You must stay composed. You must remain stable. Attraction grows in space, not pressure. Mystery builds value. Patience builds power. Repeat this to yourself. She is thinking about me, but she is not ready to show it. She is maintaining connection, but she is protecting her emotions. That is the reality. Accept it. Work with it. Don't fight it. Because when you understand this dynamic, you stop forcing things. You stop chasing clarity. You let things unfold naturally while maintaining your strength. As Epictetus said, don't explain your philosophy. Embody it. That is your role here. Don't confront her about what she said to others. Don't try to confirm her feelings through indirect reports. That is insecurity. Instead, focus on your own presence, your own growth, your own mission. When you become centered, her behavior becomes easier to read and easier to influence without effort. Remember this. Women often communicate emotionally, not logically. They express interest through behavior, not declarations. Talking about you is one of those behaviors. It is a safe way for her to feel connected without risking rejection. And your job is not to expose that. Your job is to understand it, respect it, and position yourself correctly. Be calm. Be observant. Be strategic. That is the mindset of an iron mind. You don't react to every signal. You interpret. You choose. You act with intention. That is how you separate yourself from the average man. That is how you align with old Stoic wisdom. That is how you truly win. And understand this final point deeply. If she is talking about you, you are already inside her world. The question is not whether she feels something. The question is whether you are strong enough to handle it correctly. Because attraction is not just about her feelings. It is about your stability, your discipline, your ability to remain grounded while others lose control. So hold your frame. Stay silent when necessary. Speak with purpose when the moment is right. Do not rush what is already unfolding. Because when you operate from Stoicism when you build an iron mind, when you apply old Stoic wisdom to modern relationships, you don't chase connection. You attract it quietly, naturally, powerfully. Sign 4. Body language reveals the truth. Now here's the fourth sign, and you need to slow down and really observe this, because it doesn't come through words, it comes through what she cannot control, and that is her body language, the silent language that always tells the truth before her mouth ever does. When you're standing with her, especially in a group, watch carefully, don't assume, don't rush, just observe, because if she consistently turns her body fully toward you, even when others are speaking, that is not random. That is focus. That is emotional alignment. That is her attention locking onto you in a way she may not even realize herself. And in female psychology, attention is currency. So when she gives it freely like that, it matters more than anything she says out loud. Notice how she mirrors you. If you lean back, she leans back. If you cross your arms, she does the same. If you tilt your head, she follows without thinking. This is one of the oldest psychology tricks rooted deep in human behavior. Because people naturally mirror those they feel connected to, those they are drawn to, those they are trying to subconsciously bond with. That is not performance, that is instinct, and instinct never lies. And don't ignore her eyes, because the eyes will always expose what she's trying to hide. When her pupils dilate as she looks at you, that's not something she can fake. That's a biological response tied to attraction, curiosity, and emotional engagement. And in the world of female psychology, this is one of the clearest signals that her guard may be up, but her feelings are very much alive beneath the surface. Then look at the small, almost invisible movements, the way she touches her hair, adjusts her necklace, checks her phone for no real reason. These are not meaningless habits. These are displacement behaviors, signs of internal energy, nervous excitement, a subtle tension that comes from caring more than she wants to admit. Understand this clearly. When a woman feels nothing, she is calm, still, unaffected. But when she feels something strong, her body starts speaking in these quiet, restless ways. You must not ignore this. You must not misread this. Because most men make the mistake of only listening to words, while the truth is happening right in front of them. And here's where you separate yourself from the average man. You don't chase words, you read behavior. You don't react emotionally, you observe strategically. That is how you begin to understand the deeper layers of how to fall in love without losing control of yourself. These signals are not loud, they are not obvious, but they are consistent, and consistency is everything. One movement means nothing, but repeated patterns mean everything. That is the difference between guessing and knowing. And remember this, her logical mind may be telling her to stay composed, to stay distant, to not reveal too much, but her emotional center, the part of her that feels connection, attraction, curiosity, that part cannot stay silent forever. And it leaks through her body in real time. This is why understanding psychology tricks is not about manipulation. It's about awareness. It's about seeing what is already there, what is already happening beneath the surface. Be calm. Be grounded. Don't overreact. Because when you truly understand female psychology, you realize that attraction is rarely announced. It is revealed in fragments, in gestures, in subtle alignment, in unconscious patterns that repeat themselves when she is around you. And here's the deeper truth most men miss. This is not just about her. This is about you as well. When you become the kind of man who is centered, composed, emotionally steady, her body naturally responds, her energy shifts, her attention sharpens. Because people are drawn to presence, not performance. So don't try to force anything. Don't try to impress. Be still. Be aware. Let her reveal herself through these small, honest signals. That is power. That is clarity. That is how to fall in love without confusion, without chasing illusions, without misreading silence as rejection. Because silence is not always absence, it is often restraint. And her body, in those quiet moments, is telling you exactly what her words refuse to say. If you're paying attention, You'll see it. Her body tells the truth even when her words don't. Don't ignore the signals. Be present. Be aware. That is how you separate confusion from clarity. If this opened your eyes, like the video, subscribe for more sharp insights, and share it with someone who keeps missing the signs. Now drop this in the comments to lock it in your mind. Her body speaks what her words try to hide. Sign 5. She remembers everything. Sign 5. She remembers everything, and you must understand how powerful that really is. Most men overlook this because they're not paying attention to patterns, they're only reacting to moments. Don't make that mistake. Be sharper. Be more aware. Because when a woman remembers the smallest details about you, that is not casual memory, that is emotional investment in its purest form. Think about it. You mentioned a random story once, maybe weeks ago, something you barely thought twice about. She brings it up later, naturally, smoothly, as if it mattered. You told her your favorite drink in passing. She remembers. You shared a small frustration. She recalls it. You hinted at a dream, a plan, a preference, and somehow she stores it. That is not coincidence. That is attention with intention. When someone misses you, they replay you in their mind, over and over again. Conversations become scenes. Your words become echoes. Your presence becomes something they revisit when you're not around. That is how the mind works when emotion is involved. It loops, it highlights, it preserves. And those preserved moments? They don't stay hidden forever. They slip out. That is why she brings things up without even realizing what she's revealing. She's not thinking, let me show him I care. No, it's more subtle than that. It's unconscious. It's automatic. Her mind has made you important, and now everything connected to you is weight. That is the truth most men fail to see. Don't ignore this sign. Don't brush it off as she just has a good memory. That is surface-level thinking. A high-value man doesn't stay on the surface. He reads between the lines. He understands emotional patterns. He recognizes when attention turns into attachment. Because here's the deeper truth. People don't remember what doesn't matter to them. They don't store details about someone who doesn't occupy space in their mind. Memory is selective. It filters based on importance. So when she remembers you, really remembers you, it means you've passed that filter. You've become significant. Now listen carefully. This is where most men lose their edge. They see these signs, but they react emotionally instead of intelligently. Don't rush. Don't assume. Don't chase based on one signal. Be grounded. Be composed. That is masculine energy. Calm. Observant. In control. A high-value man doesn't get carried away by attention. He evaluates it. He watches consistency. He looks for patterns. Because one remembered detail is nice, but repeated recall? That's different. That's investment. That's interest growing beneath the surface. And here's something even more important. When she remembers your words, she's also responding to how you made her feel in those moments. Memory isn't just about facts. It's emotional. She's not just recalling what you said. She's reliving how it felt to hear you, to be around you, to connect with you. That is why this matters so much when you want to attract women in a natural, effortless way. It's not about trying harder. It's about being memorable without forcing it. Be present. Be intentional. Speak with clarity. Live with purpose. That is what leaves an imprint. Don't try to impress. That fades. Be real. That stays. When you operate from true masculine energy, you don't chase attention. You create presence. You don't seek validation. You build value. And when you do that, people remember you without trying. Your words carry weight. Your actions leave traces. Your absence becomes noticeable. That is the level you must aim for. Now, let's go deeper. Why does she remember so much? Because in her mind, you are not just another interaction. You are a reference point. When something reminds her of you, she doesn't ignore it. She follows it. She connects it back to you. That's how emotional attachment builds quietly, without announcements, without declarations. And here's the part most men never realize. She may not even fully understand it herself. She just knows you stay on her mind. She just knows certain things remind her of you. She just knows conversations with you feel different. So she holds on to those details because they help her stay connected, even when you're not there. That is subtle. That is powerful. That is real. But again, don't get lost in fantasy. Stay grounded in reality. A high value man doesn't assume interest, he observes behavior over time. He doesn't need constant reassurance, he trusts patterns. And this pattern, remembering everything, it's one of the strongest indicators that you matter more than she admits. So, what should you do? First, don't overreact. Stay calm. That is your strength. When she brings up something you said weeks ago, don't act surprised like it's shocking. Receive it naturally. That shows confidence. That shows you're used to being valued. Second, reward attention with presence, not desperation. If she invests mentally, you respond with quality interaction. Not chasing, not over-texting, just clarity, just intention. That is how you maintain balance. Third, keep building yourself. Because the goal is not just to make her remember you. The goal is to become the kind of man who is unforgettable. There's a difference. You see, when you truly step into your role as a high-value man, you don't need tricks to attract women. Your lifestyle, your mindset, your energy, it does the work for you. People feel it. They notice it. And most importantly, they remember it. That is the real game. And here's a final truth you must hold on to. Attention reveals where the heart is leaning. Memory reveals where the mind keeps returning. When both are focused on you, even quietly, even subtly, that is not. That is connection forming beneath the surface. So don't ignore it. Don't underestimate it. And don't mishandle it. Be patient. Be aware. Be steady. Because the man who understands these signals without losing his center, that is the man who wins. The move that forces her to reveal everything. The move that forces her to reveal everything is not about chasing harder. It's about mastering restraint. And this is where most men fail, because they act on impulse instead of discipline. They see the signs, they feel the pull, and they rush in, trying to secure clarity, but that is exactly what destroys the moment. Because as soon as you seek validation, you lose position. And as the old Stoic wisdom reminds us, he who is not content with what he has would not be content with what he would like to have, meaning your power comes from self-control, not reaction. Understand this clearly. When a woman begins to miss you, she enters a state of emotional tension, a quiet uncertainty where attraction grows, curiosity deepens, and her mind starts filling in the gaps about you. But the moment you overstep, the moment you try to define everything too early, you remove the mystery. And without mystery, there is no desire. So do not rush. Do not explain. Do not chase. That is not how an iron mind operates. Instead, you create strategic distance right at the peak of her interest. And yes, it will feel unnatural because your instincts will scream at you to move closer, to secure her attention, to lock it in. But Stoicism teaches the opposite: discipline over impulse, patience over reaction, control over emotion. You step back slightly. You slow your responses. You end conversations first. You stay engaged in your purpose, your life, your mission. And you let her feel the space where your presence used to be. Because that space is where attraction either dies or multiplies. And when done correctly, it multiplies. Her mind begins to question, to analyze, to wonder if she misread you, if she waited too long, if she is losing something valuable. And as Marcus Aurelius said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. And this is exactly the point. You are not trying to control her. You are mastering yourself. And that self-mastery creates a gravitational pull that others cannot ignore. In modern life, where attention is cheap and everyone is chasing instant replies and constant validation, the man who remains grounded, calm, and slightly out of reach becomes rare. And rarity creates value. So be that man, not loud, not desperate, not reactive, but centered, focused, and quietly confident. Because when you hold that frame, when you embody that iron mind, she will be the one who steps forward. She will be the one who breaks the silence. She will be the one who seeks clarity. And in that moment, you no longer wonder where you stand, you already know. Because Stoicism win is not about playing games. It's about understanding human nature, mastering your responses, and letting the truth reveal itself without forcing it. The truth no one wants to hear. The truth most men avoid is simple, and it cuts deeper than any surface level advice you'll hear about psychology tricks or female psychology. You only hold real power when you are completely, genuinely at peace with walking away. That is the line that separates emotional dependence from quiet strength. Don't chase validation. Don't sit there rereading her messages, decoding every pause, every emoji, every delay. That is not strategy. That is surrender. The moment you need her to miss you, she won't. The moment your happiness depends on her attention, you've already given away your leverage. Be honest with yourself. Be grounded. That is the foundation. Now here's where most men get it wrong when trying to understand how to fall in love or how attraction really works. They focus on her behavior instead of their own life. But attraction doesn't grow from analysis. It grows from energy, from presence, from a man who is fully engaged in his own path. When your life is full, when your time is valuable, your mission is clear, your standards are high, you stop trying to be chosen and you become the one who chooses. That is what female psychology responds to, whether people admit it or not. Women don't move toward pressure, they move toward emotional freedom. They don't lean into neediness, they are drawn to certainty. And yes, psychology tricks might get attention for a moment, but they never sustain real desire. What sustains it is a man who is centered, who knows his worth without announcing it, who can walk away without bitterness because he understands his value isn't negotiable. Don't misunderstand this. Walking away isn't about playing games. It's about alignment. It's about refusing to stay where you're not respected, not prioritized, not seen. That is strength. That is clarity. And ironically, that is what makes you unforgettable. Because when you no longer revolve around her, she starts to feel your absence. When you stop trying to control the outcome, you become the outcome. So if you want to truly understand psychology tricks, if you want insight into female psychology, if you want to know how to fall in love without losing yourself, start here. Build a life so solid that no one person defines it. Be the man who doesn't chase signals. Be the man who creates value. Be the man who can say, calmly and without anger, I'll stay if it's right, and I'll leave if it's not. That is power. That is peace. And that is what makes you impossible to ignore. Hey, my friend, I'm really glad you stayed with me until the end. Listen carefully. Don't get lost trying to read every signal. Don't chase confusion. Be the man who brings clarity into his own life first. Because the truth is simple, if she's hiding her feelings, it's not because you're lacking. It's because what she feels is strong enough to scare her. And people only fear losing what truly matters to them. So here's the advice you need to hold on to. Don't focus on decoding her. Focus on building yourself. Be calm. Be grounded. Be the kind of man who knows his worth without needing validation. That is what changes everything. When you reach that point, you stop guessing. You stop overthinking. You become the standard she measures others against. Take a moment after this video. Reflect on your actions, your mindset, your presence. Ask yourself honestly, am I a man worth missing? If not yet, that's okay. But start becoming him today. If this helped you see things more clearly, drop a comment with thank you so I know you're serious about growing. And subscribe because what's coming next will take this to a whole new level. Stay sharp, stay steady, and I'll see you in the next one. Seven ways a married woman's greeting reveals her attraction to you. Psychology tricks. Have you ever caught yourself wondering whether a married woman feels something more than just politeness when she greets you? What if the answer isn't hidden in big, obvious actions, but in those first few seconds, a glance, a smile, a subtle gesture that most men overlook? Let me share something simple, but powerful. A while ago, at a social gathering, I struck up a conversation with a married woman. Nothing unusual at first, but then I noticed the details. Her smile lingered just a little longer. Her eyes held mine with a quiet intensity. And when she laughed, Her hand briefly touched my arm, natural, effortless, yet not accidental. In that moment, I paused. Was it just friendliness? Or was there something deeper beneath the surface? Like many men, I went home replaying that interaction again and again, trying to decode it, trying to understand. And the truth is, that kind of uncertainty can quietly drain your confidence if you don't know what to look for. But here's what that experience taught me. You don't need to guess. Because a woman's greeting, especially in those first few seconds, often reveals far more than her words ever will. The Stoics understood this long ago. They believed that truth is not spoken, it is shown. As Marcus Aurelius wisely said, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. In other words, focus on what people do, not what they say. And that applies perfectly here. When a married woman greets you, her body language, her tone, her energy, all of it speaks. Quietly, honestly, without filters. That's why today, you're not just learning signs. You're learning how to see clearly. 7 subtle ways her greeting can reveal attraction, not through fantasy, not through overthinking, but through grounded psychology and calm observation. Because a strong man doesn't chase confusion. He understands. He observes. He stays steady. So if you've ever asked yourself, is she just being nice? Or is there something more? Stay with me. By the end of this, you won't need to second guess anymore. You'll simply know. Now, let's begin. Way 1. She maintains prolonged eye contact. Way 1 is simple, but don't underestimate it. She maintains prolonged eye contact. Most men rush past this moment, thinking it's nothing more than politeness. Don't make that mistake. Be aware. Be present. When a married woman is truly drawn to you, her eyes don't just meet yours. They stay there, just a second longer than what feels socially necessary. And that extra second is where everything begins. That is where curiosity lives. That is where emotion quietly reveals itself. In the world of psychology tricks and female psychology, eye contact is not random behavior. It is a deliberate signal. It says, I see you. It says, I'm paying attention. And more importantly, it says, you matter in this moment. You must understand this clearly. People don't hold eye contact with those they feel indifferent toward. They glance, they acknowledge, then they move on. But when attraction enters the room, even subtly, the eyes linger, soften, and search. That is not an accident. That is emotional investment showing itself without words. Now slow down and think deeper. Don't just look at the fact that she's holding eye contact. Feel the quality of it. Is it warm? Is it relaxed? Does it feel like she's not in a hurry to look away? That is the difference between surface-level politeness and genuine emotional pull. In female psychology, the eyes often communicate what the mouth cannot say, especially for a married woman, where boundaries, social expectations, and internal conflicts all exist at once. Her greeting becomes carefully controlled, except for her eyes. The eyes don't lie easily. They reveal interest even when the mind tries to stay disciplined. This is why, in many psychology tricks used to understand attraction, eye contact is always one of the first and strongest indicators. Not because it is obvious, but because it is honest. From a Stoic perspective, this moment becomes even more meaningful. The Stoics valued truth, presence, and authenticity above all else. When someone holds your gaze with calm confidence, without anxiety or avoidance, it reflects inner alignment. As Seneca once suggested in his Reflections on Human Nature, what we truly feel often escapes through subtle expressions long before it reaches speech. So when her eyes remain on you, steady and unguarded, it is not just attraction, it is a moment of truth. No performance, no masks, just a brief opening where she allows you to see her as she is. And you must be wise enough to notice it without becoming consumed by it. Don't chase it. Don't overreact. Just recognize it. But here is where most men fail. They see prolonged eye contact and immediately jump to conclusions. Don't do that. Be grounded. Be observant, not reactive. Attraction is rarely one loud signal. It is a pattern of small, consistent behaviors. Eye contact is the beginning, not the conclusion. It opens the door, but it does not tell the full story. That is why you must combine awareness with restraint. In how to fall in love, or more importantly, how to understand attraction, you must learn to read signals without losing your center. If you become overly excited, needy, or desperate for meaning, you destroy the very dynamic that created the connection in the first place. Stay calm. Stay in control. Let's go even deeper. Ask yourself this: what happens in that moment of eye contact? Time slows down slightly. The noise around you fades. There is a brief, silent exchange of energy. That is not imagination. That is how human connection works on a subconscious level. In female psychology, attraction often begins emotionally before it becomes logical. She may not even fully understand something engaging, something that pulls her attention back to you. And attention, in this context, is everything. Where attention goes, emotion follows. Where emotion grows, attachment can begin. That is the quiet foundation behind how to fall in love, not through grand gestures, but through repeated moments of subtle connection like this. Now listen carefully. Don't try to force eye contact. Don't stare aggressively. That creates pressure, not attraction. Instead, be comfortable with silence. Be comfortable with presence. When you look at her, do it with calm confidence, not expectation. Let her choose to hold your gaze. That is the key. Attraction cannot be demanded. It must be given freely. And when she gives it, even in something as small as a prolonged look, it carries far more meaning than words ever could. This is one of the oldest psychology tricks in human interaction. People reveal their true interest not through what they say, but through what they cannot help but do. And here's a truth most men overlook: a married woman is often more controlled in her behavior than anyone else. She is aware of boundaries. She understands consequences. Her eyes to linger on you. That signal carries more weight, not less. It means something broke through her usual filters. Something about you caught her attention enough to hold it. That is not something to take lightly. But again, don't let your ego run wild. Stay grounded in reality. Respect the situation. Respect yourself. So the next time you notice this, don't ask, "Does she like me?" That question is too simple. Instead, ask, "What is she feeling in this moment that made her stay?" Because that question leads to awareness, not assumption. And awareness is what separates a reactive man from a composed one. In the world of psychology tricks, female psychology, and understanding how to fall in love, the man who wins is not the one who chases signals, but the one who understands them without losing himself. Be that man. Quiet, observant, unshaken. Because sometimes the strongest attraction doesn't start with words. It starts with a look that lasts just a little longer than it should. Way 2. She smiles genuinely. A genuine smile is powerful. It is quiet, but it speaks louder than words. When a woman is truly drawn to you, her smile will not feel rehearsed, and it will not carry that polite distance people use to keep things safe. It will be warm. It will be natural. It will reach her eyes. That is the difference most men overlook. They see a smile and assume interest, but you must learn to see how she smiles, not just that she smiles. Psychology calls this the Duchenne smile, where both the mouth and the eyes are involved. It is not something people can fake easily. The eyes soften. The cheeks lift. The entire face becomes alive. That is not performance. That is emotion revealing itself without permission. And here is the truth. When a woman gives you that kind of smile, she is not managing an image. She is responding to a feeling. From a Stoic lens, this matters more than you think. Because a real smile reflects presence. It reflects inner stillness. She is not distracted. She is not scanning the room. She is not thinking about what comes next. She is fully in that moment, with you. And in a world where attention is scattered and shallow, that kind of presence is rare. You must recognize it. You must respect it. Do not confuse friendliness with connection. Many men fall into this trap. They see warmth and assume desire. Don't rush. Don't project. Be observant. A genuine smile lingers. It comes back again and again during the interaction. It shows up when there is no reason for it, when you pause, when you say something simple, when silence fills the space. That is when the truth reveals itself. A woman who is simply being polite will smile and then withdraw. Her face resets quickly. Her eyes move away. But a woman who feels something will hold that smile just a second longer than necessary. That extra second, that is where attraction lives. That is where interest breathes. You must understand this. People do not fake joy consistently. They can fake manners. They can fake kindness. But they cannot fake that quiet glow that comes from genuinely enjoying someone's presence. That is why a high-value man does not chase signals. He reads energy. He feels the difference. He trusts observation over assumption. And here is where most men lose their power. They become reactive. They see a genuine smile and immediately try to impress, to entertain, to prove themselves. Don't do that. That is a mistake. Attraction grows in calm, not in performance. Be steady. Be grounded. Let her come toward you emotionally instead of you rushing toward her. Masculine energy is not loud. It is not desperate. It is not trying to win approval. It is calm, centered, and aware. When she smiles genuinely, you do not need to do more. You need to remain who you are. That is what keeps the dynamic alive. That is what makes her feel safe leaning in. Think about it this way. A genuine smile is like an open door. But just because a door is open does not mean you run through it. You walk. You observe. You respect the space. That is how a high-value man moves. That is how he attracts women without forcing anything. There is also a deeper layer here. A real smile reveals emotional comfort. And emotional comfort is the foundation of attraction. If she feels tense, guarded, or uninterested, her body will not allow that kind of expression. But when she smiles with her eyes, she is telling you something without words. I feel good around you. And that feeling is where everything begins. Do not underestimate the power of that moment. Many men are too distracted to notice it. They are thinking about what to say next, how to look better, how to control the outcome. But the man who truly understands human behavior, he slows down. He watches. He listens. He reads the room. That is how he separates himself from the rest. Be that man. Be the man who notices the small things. Be the man who values authenticity over noise. Because in a world full of surface-level interactions, the ability to recognize something real gives you an edge most men will never have. And here is the truth you must accept. Attraction is not always loud. It does not always announce itself clearly. Sometimes it hides in subtle moments. A pause, a glance, a smile that lasts just a little longer than it should. That is why awareness matters. That is why presence matters. If you want to attract women, you must first become someone who can see clearly. Someone who is not blinded by ego or neediness. Someone who is grounded in himself. That is masculine energy at its core. So when she smiles genuinely, don't overthink it. Don't chase it. Don't try to control it. Simply recognize it for what it is, a moment of real connection. And then do the most powerful thing you can do. Stay calm. Stay present. Stay grounded. Because a high-value man does not create attraction by force. He allows it to grow naturally, and that is exactly why it stays. If you understand this, don't ignore it, use it. A genuine smile is never random. It's a signal, a moment of truth. You must learn to recognize it and, more importantly, become the kind of man who naturally draws it out. So take action right now. Drop this in the comments. I attract real smiles, not forced ones. Like the video, subscribe for more sharp, grounded insight, and remember, real connection isn't chased. It's earned through presence, calm energy, and self-mastery. Way 3. She initiates physical contact. Way 3. She initiates physical contact. This is where attention sharpens and discipline is tested, because a light touch on your arm, a hug that lingers just a second too long, or a subtle brush as she passes by is never just random. It is communication without words. And if you are paying attention, you will see it clearly. But if you are careless, you will misread it and lose control of the situation, and that is where most men fail. Understand this deeply. Touch is one of the most powerful signals in human psychology because it activates oxytocin, the bonding hormone, the very chemical that builds trust, connection, and emotional closeness. And in today's fast paced, disconnected modern world, where people hide behind screens and avoid real intimacy, physical contact becomes even more meaningful, even more intentional, even more revealing. So when a married woman chooses to cross that invisible boundary, even slightly, it is not something you ignore, but it is also not something you rush to act upon. Because this is exactly where your iron mind must lead you, not your impulse. Remember what Marcus Aurelius taught: you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. And this is your moment to practice that power. Because attraction is not the test, your response is the test, your restraint is the test, your awareness is the test. Too many men, especially in today's world, are quick to react, quick to assume, quick to chase validation, but that is not the path of old Stoic wisdom. And that is not how a man builds presence, respect, and inner authority. You must observe first, always observe. Because context is everything. Was the touch natural, part of her personality? Or was it deliberate, repeated, and focused on you? Because there is a difference, and only a man with a calm mind and sharp awareness can tell the difference. Do not be naive, but do not be desperate either. Balance is your power. This is where Stoicism win becomes more than a concept. It becomes your behavior, your posture, your silence, your control. You do not overreact. You do not lean in too quickly. You do not let your emotions write a story that reality has not confirmed. Instead, you stay grounded. You stay composed. You stay in control of yourself. Because as Epictetus said, no man is free who is not master of himself. And mastery is exactly what separates the man who is remembered from the man who is forgotten. Understand this clearly. Attraction can be fleeting. Signals can be misleading. But your character is permanent. Your discipline is permanent. Your self-respect is permanent. And in a world where boundaries are often blurred and emotions run unchecked, the man who remains centered becomes rare, becomes valuable, becomes unforgettable. Do not chase the moment. Lead the moment. Do not get carried away by a touch. Understand the meaning behind it, but never lose yourself in it. Because once you lose control, you lose clarity. And once you lose clarity, you make decisions that do not align with your long-term strength. Modern life will constantly tempt you to react fast, to feel more, to think less, but old Stoic wisdom teaches the opposite. Slow down, observe deeply, act with intention. And that is how you build an iron mind. Remind yourself again and again, this is not about her touch. This is about your response. This is about your discipline. This is about your ability to remain steady when emotions try to pull you off center. And here is the truth most men avoid. Being desired is easy, but being respected is rare. And respect always comes from control, not reaction. So when you feel that moment, when that subtle contact happens, do not rush, do not assume, do not lose your frame. Instead, breathe, observe, and stay grounded. Because that is how a man wins. That is how Stoicism win becomes real in your life. Not just words, not just theory, but action, presence, and identity. You are not here to chase every signal. You are here to understand them, to rise above them, and to act only when it aligns with your values and your purpose. Because in the end, attraction may open the door, but your discipline decides whether you walk through it or walk away with your power intact. And that right there is the mark of a man who has truly mastered himself. Way 4. She compliments you. Way 4. She compliments you, and you must understand this clearly, because this is where many men misread the signal or lose their center. A compliment, when it comes from a place of genuine attention, is never random. It is chosen. It is directed. It is intentional. When a married woman notices something about you, your appearance, the way you carry yourself, your voice, your mindset, or even your quiet confidence, and she expresses it with warmth, that is not casual. That is awareness. And awareness is the beginning of attraction. Now, don't rush. Don't jump to conclusions. But don't ignore it either. In female psychology, people invest attention where they feel something. Not always love. Not always desire. but something real enough to make them speak. And when she speaks in the form of a compliment, she is opening a small emotional door. You must see that. You must read it calmly. You must stay composed. A genuine compliment is never vague. It is not "you're nice" or "you're okay." No, it is specific. It is "you have a calming presence" or "I like the way you think" or "you always seem so put together." That is different. That is focused energy. And focused energy reveals interest. These are the subtle psychology tricks that most men overlook because they are either too eager or too insecure. Don't be either. Be steady. Be observant. Because when someone highlights a specific trait, they are telling you what they are paying attention to. And attention, in the language of female psychology, is a form of emotional investment. Now here's where it becomes deeper. Compliments are not just words. They're emotional signals. Psychologically, when someone gives you a compliment, they are creating a positive emotional association with you. They are linking your presence to a good feeling. That is how attraction slowly builds. Not through grand gestures, not through dramatic moments, but through small, repeated emotional imprints. This is part of how to fall in love, quietly, gradually, without even realizing it at first. And if you understand these psychology tricks, you begin to see the pattern. She notices you. She appreciates you. She expresses it. That cycle, repeated over time, strengthens connection. But here is where your discipline matters. Do not chase the compliment. Do not depend on it. Do not let it inflate your ego or define your value. This is where stoic strength separates you from the average man. Because while many men hear a compliment and immediately seek more, a grounded man hears it, acknowledges it, and remains unchanged at his core. That is power. That is control. You must accept the compliment. You must appreciate it. A simple, calm "thank you" is enough. Don't overreact. Don't downplay it either. Just receive it with quiet confidence. Because when you do that, you send a message: I am not defined by your approval, but I respect your words. And that balance is rare. That balance is attractive. Now think deeper. Why would she compliment you? People don't go out of their way to lift others up without reason, especially in subtle, personal ways. In female psychology, compliments are often a safe way to express interest without crossing obvious boundaries. It's controlled. It's measured. It allows her to test the emotional space between you and her. She observes your reaction. She reads your energy. She feels whether you are grounded or reactive. And this is where most men fail the test. They either become too excited, too talkative, too eager, or they become awkward, dismissive, unsure. Don't fall into that trap. Stay centered, because your reaction to the compliment tells her more about you than the compliment itself. Remember this: attraction is not built on what she says. It is built on how you respond. And if you respond with calm confidence, you strengthen the emotional dynamic. If you respond with neediness, you weaken it instantly. This is why understanding psychology tricks is not about manipulating others. It is about mastering yourself. It is about seeing clearly without losing control. It is about recognizing signals without becoming dependent on them. Now bring this into real life. You're in a conversation. She smiles. She looks at you and says, "You always seem so composed." That is not random. That is observation. That is appreciation. That is a window. And you must handle that moment with precision, not by trying to impress her further, not by seeking more praise, but by holding your frame, by staying grounded, by showing through your presence that her words do not shake you, they simply pass through you and are acknowledged. That is how you build respect. That is how you build quiet attraction. Because in the end, the strongest signal is not the compliment she gives, it is the stability you maintain. And this is the deeper truth about how to fall in love. It is not about chasing feelings. It is not about collecting validation. It is about creating a space where emotions can grow naturally, without pressure, without force. And that only happens when you are centered within yourself. So don't ignore compliments, but don't depend on them. See them. Understand them. Use them as information, not as fuel for your ego. Because when you master that balance, you stop reacting like a man seeking approval and you start standing like a man who commands quiet respect. If this hit home, don't just watch, act. Like the video, subscribe for more sharp insights, and share it with someone who needs clarity, not confusion. And right now, drop this in the comments to lock it into your mindset. I accept praise, but I stay grounded in my worth. Wave 5. She asks personal questions. When a woman moves past surface level conversation and begins asking about your life, your feelings, your direction, pay close attention. That is not casual. That is intentional. Small talk keeps things safe. Personal questions create connection. And connection, when guided by curiosity and emotional investment, often signals deeper interest. She is no longer just passing time. She is investing it. She wants to understand what drives you, what shaped you, what keeps you grounded when life gets difficult. And that shift from polite conversation to meaningful inquiry is where attraction often reveals itself quietly, but clearly. Think about it. Anyone can ask, "How was your day?" That's routine. But when she asks, "What are you working toward right now?" or "What really matters to you at this stage in your life?" That's different. That requires thought. That requires intention. That is her stepping into your inner world. And when someone chooses to step into your inner world, they are showing interest beyond the surface. They are trying to connect with your identity, not just your presence. But don't rush to conclusions. Don't get carried away by attention alone. You must stay grounded. A high-value man understands the difference between curiosity and commitment. He doesn't assume. He observes. He listens. He lets patterns reveal truth. One question means little. A consistent pattern of deeper questions, that's where meaning lives. That is where attraction becomes more than a possibility. Psychologically, asking personal questions builds emotional intimacy. It lowers barriers. It creates trust. When she asks about your past, she is exploring your story. When she asks about your goals, she is measuring your direction. When she asks about your feelings, she is testing emotional depth. And all of this happens subtly. No grand declaration, no dramatic signal, just steady, intentional curiosity. That is how real connection begins. Quietly, gradually, naturally. But here's where most men lose control. They get excited. They overshare. They start revealing everything too quickly, thinking vulnerability will secure attraction. Don't do that. Be open, but be measured. Be honest, but be disciplined. That is masculine energy. That is emotional strength. You are not there to impress. You are not there to perform. You are there to connect without losing yourself in the process. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Remember that. Her questions are outside events. Your response is your power. Don't let curiosity from others dictate how much of yourself you give away. A high-value man chooses what to reveal and when. He understands that mystery is not about hiding, it's about pacing. It's about respecting his own depth enough not to give it away cheaply. And let's be clear, when she asks personal questions, she is also observing how you answer. She is not just listening to your words. She is reading your energy. Are you calm? Are you centered? Are you confident in your truth? Or do you become overly eager, overly talkative, trying to prove something? That is the test. Attraction is not built only on what you say, it is built on how you carry yourself while saying it. This is where masculine energy becomes undeniable. Stay relaxed. Stay grounded. Speak clearly. Don't rush your words. Don't fill silence out of discomfort. Silence is power when you are comfortable in it. And that comfort communicates more than any long explanation ever could. Now, understand this deeper layer. When a woman asks personal questions, she is not just trying to know you. She is trying to feel you. She wants to sense whether you are stable, whether you are driven, whether you are emotionally aware. She is asking herself, is this a man I can respect? Is this a man who knows himself? And your answers, your tone, your pace, your presence will answer that for her. So be real. Don't exaggerate. Don't pretend. Don't shape your answers to fit what you think she wants to hear. That never lasts. Truth always reveals itself over time. And when it does, inconsistency destroys attraction faster than anything else. A high value man doesn't chase approval, he stands in his truth. That is what allows him to attract women naturally, without force, without manipulation. At the same time, you must protect your boundaries. This is where discipline separates men. Just because she asks does not mean you must answer everything. Some things require trust. Some things require time. You are allowed to say, "That's something I don't open up about right away." That is not rejection. That is self-respect. And self-respect is deeply attractive. Connection is powerful, but integrity is more important. Never trade your values for attention. Never trade your peace for temporary excitement. Emotional intimacy should grow step by step, not all at once. If you rush it, you weaken it. If you pace it, you strengthen it. That is how lasting attraction is built, not through intensity, but through consistency. And here's the truth most men overlook. When you respond with calm honesty and clear boundaries, you create a dynamic that is rare. You become the man who is both open and grounded, approachable yet disciplined, warm yet controlled. That balance is magnetic. That is what allows you to attract women without effort, because your presence speaks before your words ever do. So when she asks those deeper questions, don't panic. Don't overthink. Don't perform. Just be present. Listen carefully. Answer simply. Hold your frame. Let her come closer step by step. That is how real attraction unfolds, not through force, but through alignment. Be the man who understands this. Be the man who values connection but protects his core. Be the man who listens more than he speaks, who reveals with intention, who moves with quiet confidence. That is masculine energy in its purest form. And that is what sets a high-value man apart in any interaction, in any room, at any stage of life. Way 6. She mirrors your behavior. Do not dismiss that signal. Do not laugh it off. And do not rush to turn it into fantasy. Pay attention. Stay calm. Stay clear. When a married woman subtly reflects your posture, your rhythm, your tone, or your pace, something important may be happening beneath the surface. If you lean in and she leans in, if you lower your voice and she softens hers, if you smile and she answers with the same warmth, that is not always random. That is often human nature revealing itself in real time. Psychology has long shown that mirroring is one of the quiet ways people build trust, comfort, and emotional closeness. It is a subconscious language. It says, "I feel at ease with you." It says, "I am tuned in." It says, "For this moment, I am moving with your energy." But listen carefully. This is where most men lose their footing. They see one sign and create a whole story. They notice one echo and assume a full confession. That is a mistake, a costly mistake. A man with judgment does not chase every signal. He reads it. He respects it. He stays centered. As Marcus Aurelius said, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. That is the frame you must hold. Not excitement without discipline. Not imagination without restraint. Discipline, clarity, self-command. In modern life, where so much communication is blurred by texting, social media, office tension, casual banter, and emotional loneliness, mirroring can happen in conversations at work, at the gym, at church gatherings, at family events, or even in a simple exchange over coffee. People mirror when they feel safe. People mirror when they feel seen. People mirror when they are emotionally engaged. But a wise man does not exploit that. He does not test it like a game. He does not start performing to pull more of it out of her. He does not become louder, smoother, or more calculated just to see whether she follows. No, that is insecurity dressed up as confidence. Real confidence never begs for proof. Real confidence never manipulates. Real confidence stands still and lets truth reveal itself. This is where old Stoic wisdom matters. Observe without attachment. Notice without hunger. Understand without losing yourself. The moment you start acting instead of being, you break your own frame. The moment you start performing for a reaction, you hand your power away. Stay authentic. Stay measured. Stay clean in your intentions. If she mirrors you, let it be information, not intoxication. Let it be a detail, not your destiny. Because the strongest men do not need to force meaning out of every moment. They let patterns speak over time. They let consistency reveal reality. They do not grab at sparks and call them fire. They watch. They learn. They remain steady. Epictetus taught, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. That matters here more than ever. Be the man who is composed under attention. Be the man who does not melt under admiration. Be the man who can feel chemistry without becoming careless. That is power. That is presence. That is the iron mind your life demands. And let us be honest, in today's world, many people are starved for real connection. They live behind screens. They speak in fragments. They hide behind jokes, emojis, and half-hearted conversations. So when a moment of genuine synchronization appears, it can feel electric. It can feel rare. It can feel bigger than it is. But your job is not to be hypnotized by the feeling. Your job is to remain grounded inside it. If her body language reflects yours, if her expressions begin to match yours, if her conversational tempo begins to align with yours, recognize it for what it may be: rapport, curiosity, comfort, or attraction. Then stop there. Do not decorate it. Do not chase it. Do not build a castle out of a glance. A man who wants to win in life must master his interpretations before he tries to master any situation. That is Stoicism win in practice. That is not coldness. That is not passivity. That is mature control. Maya Angelou said, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Wise words. But here is the deeper lesson for you. Believe patterns, not impulses. Believe consistency, not isolated moments. Believe character, not chemistry alone. Because mirroring can be meaningful, yes, but meaning without moral clarity becomes a trap. And if you are a man who values self-respect, peace, and purpose, you do not flirt with confusion. You do not feed emotional chaos. You do not step into situations that weaken your integrity. You stand tall. You stay respectful. You keep your conduct clean. That is what separates a grown man from a restless one. So what should you do when you notice mirroring? First, relax. Second, remain natural. Third, keep the interaction respectful and balanced. Do not suddenly intensify your behavior just to test her response. Do not become theatrical. Do not become needy. Let your presence stay the same. Let your voice stay steady. Let your values stay visible. If the connection is real, it will not need tricks. If the moment has truth in it, truth will survive without your performance. This is the lesson men need, especially in a culture obsessed with hacks, signals, and psychology tricks. Yes, human behavior matters. Yes, reading cues matters. But your greatest advantage is not cleverness. It is character, not strategy. Character, not performance. Character. That is old Stoic wisdom. That is Stoicism win. That is the iron mind in action. You do not win by collecting attention. You win by keeping your center. You win by refusing to be ruled by impulse. You win by acting in a way that lets you respect yourself when the moment is over. So remember this well, mirroring is subtle but powerful. It may reflect comfort. It may reflect attraction. It may reflect emotional alignment. Notice it. Respect it. But never let it lead you where your principles would not go. Be calm. Be sharp. Be grounded. Let others reveal themselves while you remain fully yourself. That is strength. That is mastery. That is how a man moves through modern life with clarity, restraint, and quiet authority. And in the end, that is the deepest message of all. The strongest signal in any room is not her mirroring you. It is your ability to stay steady no matter who does. If you recognize this, you're starting to see what most men completely miss. Attraction isn't loud, it's subtle, reflected back to you in quiet ways. But here's the truth. Don't chase the signal, become the standard. Don't perform. Don't adjust just to gain approval. Stay grounded. Stay real. That's where your power is. If you understand this, comment below, I stay authentic, and the right energy aligns with me. Way 7. She creates opportunities to be near you. Way 7. She creates opportunities to be near you, and this is where subtle behavior becomes unmistakably intentional if you know how to read it correctly through psychology tricks and a deeper understanding of female psychology. You'll notice she positions herself in your space without making it obvious. She chooses the seat next to you when other options exist. She finds small, almost invisible reasons to walk beside you, linger in conversation, or appear in the same environment as you. Frequent, and that's not random. That's a pattern, and patterns reveal truth far more than words ever will, because in female psychology, proximity is one of the quietest yet most powerful signals of interest. It's not loud, it doesn't demand attention, but it consistently shows up, and that consistency is what you must pay attention to, not one moment, not one coincidence, but repetition over time, because once can be accidental, twice might be situational, but repeated behavior becomes intention, and intention is where real meaning lives. Understand this clearly. People move toward what they feel drawn to, and when a woman subtly closes the distance between you and her, she is, in her own quiet way, expressing comfort, curiosity, and a desire to connect. This is one of those psychology tricks that reveals more than direct communication ever could, because actions bypass filters, they come from instinct, and instinct rarely lies. But don't rush to conclusions. Don't let your mind run ahead of reality. Don't build fantasies out of small signals, because while proximity can indicate attraction, it can also reflect personality, environment, or habit. And this is where most men lose control. They see movement and immediately assign meaning without discipline, without observation, without patience, and that is a mistake. You must slow down. You must observe patterns. You must remain centered, because a grounded man understands that attraction is not something you chase, it is something you recognize without losing yourself. And this is where how to fall in love becomes relevant in a mature, controlled way, not reckless emotion, not blind pursuit, but awareness, presence, and self command, as the Stoics taught. He who is not master of himself is not free, and in moments like this, your ability to stay composed matters more than her behavior, because anyone can react, but very few can observe without. Attachment. Look closer. Does she consistently place herself near you even when there's no clear reason? Does she extend conversations just a little longer than necessary? Does she mirror your movement by aligning her pace with yours? These are not accidents. These are signals embedded in behavior, and understanding these signals is part of mastering psychology tricks and reading female psychology with clarity, not confusion. But here's the line you must never cross. Don't interpret proximity as permission. Don't assume closeness equals commitment, and don't let attention inflate your ego, because the moment you lose your center, you lose your power, and more importantly, you lose your integrity. A strong man does not react impulsively to attention. He evaluates it, he understands it, and then he chooses his response with intention, because real strength is not in attracting someone, it's in maintaining who you are while that attraction exists. Be calm, be observant, be disciplined. That is how you win, not by chasing signals, but by understanding them without being controlled by them. When you notice her moving closer, don't lean forward emotionally, don't overinvest, don't change your behavior to accommodate her presence. Instead, stay consistent, stay authentic, because consistency is what creates real attraction, not performance, not adjustment, not trying to impress, and this is where many men fail. They see interest and immediately start trying. They shift their energy, they become less grounded, and that shift is felt instantly, because attraction thrives on stability, not uncertainty. If you want to understand how to fall in love in a way that builds something real, you must first understand how to remain stable in moments of emotional stimulation, because love that is built on imbalance will never last. And here's the deeper truth. Proximity is not just about physical closeness, it's about emotional comfort. It's about feeling safe enough to share space, to exist without pressure, and when a woman repeatedly chooses to be near you, she is testing that space. She is feeling the energy you bring. She is evaluating whether your presence feels calm or chaotic, grounded or reactive. And that's why your internal state matters more than anything you say or do, because energy is always felt before. Words are processed, This is why mastering psychology tricks is not about manipulation. It's about awareness, and understanding female psychology is not about control. It's about clarity. So don't rush. Don't assume. Don't chase. Watch the pattern. Let her actions reveal her intention over time. And most importantly, stay rooted in yourself, because the man who understands how to fall in love wisely is the man who never abandons his principles for attention. He doesn't lose his center when someone steps closer. He doesn't get carried away by subtle signals. He simply observes, understands, and chooses his path with quiet confidence. That is power, that is discipline, and that is the difference between reacting to attraction and mastering it. Hey, my friend, I'm really glad you stayed with me until the very end. Listen carefully. These signs you've just learned, they're not just about attraction. They're quiet tests of who you are. A smile, a compliment, a subtle mirror, they can pull you in if you're not aware. So don't rush. Don't assume. And don't let your emotions take the lead. Be the man who observes first. Be the man who feels, but stays steady. That is where real strength lives. That is where respect is built. Here's the truth you must hold on to. Attraction is common, but self-control is rare. And the man who masters himself will never lose his direction, no matter who stands in front of him. If this message spoke to you, take a second to like and subscribe to Stoic Stream. It helps this space grow, and it helps more men like you become stronger, calmer, and more grounded. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever noticed these signals in real life? And more importantly, how did you respond? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And if you're ready to go deeper, check the description. There's a free guide waiting for you, something simple, practical, and powerful to help you apply these principles in your daily life. Remember this: Stoicism is not just something you learn. It's something you live. Every day, in every moment. Share this with someone who needs it. Until next time, stay calm, stay sharp, and stay in control.